Even if it was the cold wind late at night, the moonlight peeked through the high clouds, or the senses of one of their old assassins, they whispered. An assassin is kneeling on one foot on the ground, with a praise of the killer, again, doing well. The assassin raised his head, thanked him, the Lord Darius. The person standing in front of the assassin was Darius Robert, the assassin thought. They said that they would die under this man tonight. Darius told the assassin, "You showed me a result worthy of the position of a field. Thanks to your merit, our family was able to make a better progress than before. The assassin Raon replied, "I only did what I need to do, sir." Darius looked at Ron and said, "I was really curious, Ron." After that, Darius asked Ron, "Do you believe that a shadow needs freedom?" Ron replied, "The image of the gods just needed to execute the owner's command. In us, there was no existence called thought, emotion or heart." Darius heard Ron say so praised. "Good, so you also know well. But if you already know that." Darius gripped his hands tightly, looked angry. Ron as well as suffered a pressure on himself. Darius asked, "So why did you dare to act on his own? And how can you get rid of brainwashing?" Ron listened to Darius and finished showing a fear and then wondered how to do it, did it so much that he knew that. Speaking of brainwashing, Ron said, "The way the Robert family optimizes the team assassinates the team is by kidnapping or buying and selling children. And turning them into assassins will succeed their lives to perform dirty jobs for the Robert family. In other words, they raise loyal dogs for the family. I was also brainwashed, but, thanks to once I accidentally met in one mission, I was able to remove the shackles that had imprisoned me." Returning to the present, Raon silently asked, "But why could he know that he had not brainwashed?" Raon immediately asked Darius, "Why did he know that so, my lord?" Darius said, "In all the assassins, including you, there are 2 tight chains on your neck. The first thing is to brainwash in some way you can escape. And the second," Darius flicked his hand. Darius said, "This thing." Raon immediately felt the pain from the heart. Raon coughed out a mouthful of blood. Raon collapsed to the ground, one hand hugging his left chest screaming in pain, "Ah!" Raon suffered pain, what this pain was, feeling like his heart was cut off. Darius looked so hard, then smiled. Darius said, "That was indignant." Raon immediately looked up straight Darius. Darius continued, "An insect was implanted into the body of the body, it was still listening to my order and was gradually corroding your heart. The worst evil thing is what can read the emotions of a slave." Raon heard and then bitten to the teeth and said, "Only the brainwashing is still not enough for you, but also forcing me to eat too much. Why did it have done such things and still pretended to be a high virtue? You're a really convenient man, Darius." Darius heard Ron say that, not angry. It was called careful, not convenient. Do not forget, you can escape from being brainwashing. People say that everyone wears a mask, just that our mask is a bit thicker and more special than others. Raon looked at Darius silently calling, "Darius Robert." Raon now tells about the past. "I was kidnapped at the age when I could hardly remember anything, then raised as a hunting dog and assassin for the Robert family, even when I returned. Tan on Ling, I live without my heart or emotion. But, thanks to a lucky time, I was able to learn a technique called fire, and that technique, proven that it was a special ability of the strongest swordsman for a long time. Before, Wild can help me get rid of brainwashing. I thought I could finally escape the team image and dreamed of freedom, finally, I hope, but why the thing waiting for me at the end of the road is death and no freedom. I have any crime, why do I die a meaningless death like this?" Raon was now angry, clenching his teeth, he gave out a stream of energy. Hand clenched and thought, "Damn it, I could not let everything end like this." Raon stood up and stared at Darius Robert, "If I would have to die anyway." Seeing him can stand up Darius in astonishment, "How you can stand up in that situation? If my outcome is like that, I will take his hand, or at least hurt him before I die." At the end of thinking, Raon shouted at Darius, "I won't die a pathetic death." But Darius just swung one hand. A ray of light fluttering. Raon's head has left the body. The head fell to the ground terrified. Darius stood there to look at Raon's body in one place, one head. Looking at the wound in my hand, Darius thought, even if I had that blow. Although it was just trash, he could not escape from being brainwashing, he could endure the pain from the indignation and attack him. How long it was a long time. How many years have been injured from the last time? To be bitten by a hunting dog that I have trained it is unbelievable. But now no need to worry about him because he is dead. Handling him to Darius has just ordered immediately 2 subordinates from where to appear to handle Raon's body. Raon's eyes always stared at him. Darius is considered to be one of the strongest warriors across the mainland. The loss of him will happen. He is a strong man and he is a weak man against it. But I don't accept. I regretted living this life for no reason. I regret for being played by the name Darius all my life. And I am extremely regretful that I could not complete the fire. Whether it is a god or even a devil, so please. Do something and give me the opportunity to pay Darius. While Raon was the most desperate, suddenly a blue light appeared from his necklace. A notice table appears. You have been chosen by indignation. Indignation will enter your body dead. Error system. On a clear blue sky filled with positive light. A beautiful mother is playing with her children, watching her mother go to the sun's sun. The baby cried, "Abba, very good, now what is this?" The baby said, "A bow." "Oh my God, the lovely sunshine of my mother is so cute," she hugged her up happily. That baby is Raon, he thinks. I still haven't got used to this thing. The woman who is hugging me is Sylvia. I still could not believe it, told my mother, I was transferred as a woman. Hey, although it still retains memories in his past life as his assassin. At first I thought this was a dream and slept for 100 days, why I still haven't woke up, but no matter how much I sleep, I finally accepted the truth that I was already regeneration. At this time the mother picked him up and said, "The weather is also beautiful today. Hopefully the Lord will return soon. So he will be able to give you a beautiful name." In his heart, he thought, it was a bit strange to be called by the nickname. Without meeting his son for 100 days, he must be very busy, he said. Abu. I still have not been able to discover much after rebirth, but at least I know this is a rather rich family of the upper class. I guess that being reborn in a powerful and rich family is better than a mediocre family. Because I need to take revenge. One thing that I still remember clearly is the indignation and hatred that I felt in my heart before dying. But I need to be patient, because I have just been around in this room. I don't know where this is, I don't know what my position is, or what I am in. In addition, because I could not complete the technique of fire my ring, I had to endure it more patiently. I was once called the greatest assassin of the Robert family, to wait until the day I could pay Darius. I can suppress my emotions and desires until the time of 9 bait. But this makes me feel more curious than the dazzling and size of this mansion is more than the upper hand. Suddenly he turned to see something. At this moment a maid panicked and ran in, the lady Sylvia. "The Lord is back." "Father," Sylvia said, "how do you mean that the Lord is his grandfather?" Raon thinks. Sylvia turned to tell the servant, "We had to prepare something, late," then that day had come to the door. The maid replied, "Oh no." Sylvia tense. Everyone tensed up towards the big door. This makes the boy a bit nervous. What is the monster of this presence? Declaration of his return. To show this pressure only with your own presence. The Lord and the red robe entered. Sylvia carried Raon, too. It is impossible if I am not wrong with this person, Raon thinks. At this time Sylvia spoke, "Father. This is that child?" the man asked. "I'm sure," Raon looks. An elderly man with hair glowed with the color of the eyes with the red color of the fire, and a colder face than the owner of the greatest family of the continent, destroying the king of North Glen Zegert. "Ha," the man had hour, seemingly somehow. "I was reborn in the strongest family." He wanted to keep him, an uncomfortable fate. From today onwards the boy's name is Raon, just as his name is quietly living, and exists quietly like the shadow as if he or she did not stay in this. After passing life and death, I also have a new name. Raon. At night, Raon lies alone in the cradle waiting until everyone goes to bed. Maybe they sleep now. He sat up. It was true that 100 days of depression, but now I have the opportunity. Sometimes, suddenly sleepy. And whenever puberty Sylvia is next to me, I cannot control mana or anything else, at least quite relieved when I can sleep alone in the cradle. Okay. At this time, he recalled the memory of his previous life, began to cultivate fire to condense. Often technical continental cultivation uses the breath to allow mana from nature and aura accumulated in the center of the fire. Like a witch that creates a mana ring, it will create a circle around the heart, which helps to increase endurance and stimulate the development of the body while also raising the will and similarity of mana. Therefore this method allows a person to have an ideal condition to become a warrior. That is great too. There is another advantage that even geniuses like Darius cannot detect whether Hoahon exists or not. Above all, if I cultivate my body and mind by using Zegert's complete fire and turning into my own, the revenge on Darius Robert will no longer be a void. It may be due to this body structure that my mana circuit is cold. This is the reason that my whole body is still cold whether I sleep 20 hours or many hours. The congestion is a beta or in the 9 zone, so serious that this moment I will die due to the cold air in the magic circuit. I need to clear the circuit with a fire on the other side. If I throw away this bone cold, I will regret it. I will combine it with the fire flow in my body and rotate them. The night was late at night. Alright, maybe a bit slow but quite stable. Next is, only a bit of cultivation is tired. Cheeks, I can't. Then he fell asleep. Moments later Glenn appeared and approached his cradle. He rubbed his head. Outside the bright moon illuminated. Next morning. You are playing with Mother Sylvia. Our Rom is too cute to crawl more, a boo-boo. In his mind, he secretly played with this mother so tired of the soul, but I was forced to act like the baby was about to die. Nothing that Rom can do, cute too cute, being grabbed by mom on Ron's hands depressed, I would rather cold. Our cute Ron, suddenly a call rang out, Sylvia is here. A old man without holy, Sylvia said. A gray-haired old man entered. Laughing, what the holy here, just call me the old man. Seeing the old Ron thought, this person was holy. His holy and holy skill must be called the top of the continent. He is the most famous lady of the continent, but his adventurous personality makes it difficult to meet him as going to heaven. The old man looked affectionately Ron and said, I was walking and visiting her because I heard that she had just given birth to this child. Sylvia replied, yes, yes. Oh, blonde hair, red eyes. He picked up Ron, saying, yes, it's not so beautiful. The boy is so cute. Then Glenn, completely different, what is this baby's name? Sylvia hummed, the name of the boy named Ron. Not intentionally named that darkness that night. Yes, Sylvia replied, named a child. What was the night? Glenn thought, he said. Ron with 2 round eyes thinking, he is not like any title, there is any relationship between them. I have heard that the king destroyed the north and the holy relationship with friends, but if that is true. Ron, let me see which kid. At this time the old man put his hand on his chest. A yellow light appears. The mother beside her hands clasped her eyes and pushed anxiety. At this time he thought, the boy's situation was not good. Is there any problem with the boy? Sylvia worriedly asked. This baby was cursed inside. The boy's mana circuit is stopped by the ice pieces, ignoring the future that he will be difficult to become a swordsman. If not treated, the boy will die. This boy will not live long, the old man said in a low voice. Sylvia heard that, temporarily unacceptable, he lied. The old man continued to say, I would give her a little medicine to maintain. At this time a maid came into the notice. He apologized. The boss invited him. I will guide the way, after that I will go. The boss said he must invite him immediately. A name still calls in the wrong time. I understand now, I'll leave. Ron also silently thought, now I know that it is a bang curse, that I know the name, there is nothing to change. Do not say it is due to fire. Suddenly a drop of water falling on his cheek. It turned out that his mother was crying. Is lying. I can't lose my child like this. Whoever says I will die, but it's meaningless. I will do everything to cure you. My mother will do anything necessary. I can't go to Ron, don't get sick. What is this feeling? But my heart hurts it. It hurts my whole body tired. I don't want to see this scene. Do not cry. Ron put the small arm and wipe away the tears. Made her stare in astonishing child. At this moment, he suddenly spoke his mother. Mom, the voice stored surprised Sylvia. In an old man's room and Glenn, sitting and talking, there was a sound of his servant Sylvia, who could not stop. Please, what noise? Outside the servant is pulling the arm of Sylvia, the person who cannot Lady Silva, the owner is. Seeing girls rushing into Glenn, shouting, what is this rude? This shameful child. He did not finish the sentence, then Sylvia knelt down, and begged his father. Please save Ron. Please save Ron. Surely you know the boy's condition, but it is all for me, please save my Rom. Surely the boy will not survive as a warrior, why must one have no help for the family? Glenn said. Isn't the baby's grandson? Sylvia said. My grandchildren take home after leaving home, Glenn replied. The only thing we do will just give it to bring the Ziegert family. Please consider it as a little luck to make it go away, but it will be that. Sylvia does not say it, father. I have nothing to say, take it out. At this time the 2 servants appear and drag Sylvia out. Father, please, please. Please save Ron. Please Ron. She was taken out of the room. Even though she cried and begged, he still silently said nothing. After the virus was taken out of the old man, he was still stubborn as usual. Sincerely so hard, why did you do so while he was the one who told me to check my nephew? Glean replied, shut up to tell me the disease in detail the child's illness go away. As I said his 9 mana circuits were closed because of style and vigor, the more dangerous the disease would be. Because he repelled his or her or his body, he wouldn't have a problem, but as I said his nephew would not be able to become a warrior. As long as the boy is still alive, it doesn't matter that he acts completely different from just now that he still loves his nephew, right? But if he tried to do that, why name his nephew Raon? There are many good names, but why is that name? Glenn thought for a while and then answered, Ron did not only mean darkness. 1,000 years ago it had a completely opposite meaning. Return to the mansion where Raon lives. At this time, Siu Via is giving him Ram medicine. This is a fairy medicine that Holy has given him, a little bit bitter, but I try to bear it. It was just for the boy to take medicine, but she did not dare to look at the Helen maid's son on one side and prayed. Suddenly Raon cried out to see him swallow the medicine. The two of them immediately rejoice in the boy swallowing, and Raon has suffered bitter and taken medicine. Helen, right, even though the drug is very bitter compared to young children, he surely understands his heart. Raon, Sylvia happily hugged him. Raon thought, a bit bitter, but a dose of the fire attribute was exactly what he needed right now. The heat will repel the style in his mana circuit. I understand my mother's heart, Sylvia said, let me take more medicine. It has been 2 years since Raon started practicing and taking the first medicine. Thanks to them that he could achieve faster fire than his fire, he achieved a star. And again 2 years of practice. My normal schedule will include playing with Sylvia and Helen in the morning on this continent. There is no child as busy as me and spend time taking a nap and the night is practicing. Time continued to pass and I am now 5 years old. At this time, a notice board of the system has achieved the second fire of your soul that has become a bit stronger with the effect of the 2-star fire. The magician has increased with the effect of the fire. Why does the will increase with the effect of the 2-star fire that has increased with the effect of 2-star fire? Looking at the information table of the Raon system, happy, it was finally done. I have created the second complete fire with the second fire. The fire now has turned into a cross-shaped sensitive cross of my mana that has increased a bit more than all thanks to this message. Suddenly a voice outside hoped to hear immediately that it was the voice of the Helen maid. Oh my master. You've got up. Helen had just cleaned up nothing. Raon looked at her. As I thought, she couldn't see this message window. I have seen this window in my status since reaching the first fire. At first I was not sure what it was. I quickly realized that it was a convenient system that allows me to see my condition in the blink of an eye, the window of the state of the first state of fire. And based on Helen's reaction at the time, she did not seem to see these messages. Even so, the state is poor and the curse will not change no matter how much I have been up. And not just a fairy. Certainly Sylvia, Helen and others in the sub-mansion also contributed to this over the past 5 years because they constantly check if they are uncomfortable or sick. So make sure their care is also helpful. Raon scratched his head. Even so, I am only 5 years old, I still have a pile of time without having to hurry. The curse is very confusing, even the poor tolerance is the same, that's why I am easy. However, in my previous life, I was dubbed the best assassin, now I also know the best method of training. With the background experience, as long as I can get the fire, the bad condition of those bad conditions, it will completely disappear. More if I learn Zegurt's careful swordplay, I will definitely be able to kill Darius. Even so, I could not rush to be Darius as the candidate for the title of the strongest person. I will not be able to bear it. If I am excited about this early revenge, the number of people who can kill him only count on the fingers. Even though it is slow, I have to slowly increase the strength of the strength until the opportunity appears. I will end once and forever. Then I will practice a little more. While you are thinking, Sylvia has come in. I wake up. Cut off the stream of thought, he looked out the door. Do you remember my mother told us to go to a place together? I changed and prepared and went to the main court, Sylvia said. Raon heard that Tham thought today was that day. After a while, later he got on the carriage and joined his mother to the main mansion. The 6 kings and 5 demons maintained the balance of strength on the continent. The Zegurt family, my family, was reborn as one of the 6 kings. The 6 kings gave good things while the 5 demons threatened to peace. Besides, other continents also had a ritual of judgment to decide whether someone was good or bad. And today is the ritual of Zegurt. A magnificent castle appeared before his eyes. Inside the hall, many people have been chatting together, for a long time. This is the first time we have met again since the ritual of judgment last year. because I am busy with the missions foreign country is so haha, this year is there any system to attend? I heard that there was the fourth son of Karun, haha I also heard that Sylvia. What Sylvia, that failed item, when they were talking, saw the mother and son Sylvia coming in. All eyes are on them. Then continuously the surrounding murmur. So it was Sylvia's son, the young boy was too young to hear that the boy was sick, probably the rumor was true, how to avoid it inheriting the blood of a failure, I should call it the blood of the type of failure. Unable to believe that she is allowed to step here, do we need to make a ritual for a failure of a failure, I really hope that I will not have to see them again, really, the standard has been completely reduced. Hearing the hard words to hear Ron thought in the stomachs were applying my uncle a lot with something that I did not know, oh I did not care about being cursed but. She is really shameless. Ron looked sharp and stared straight to think. Suddenly Sylvia's voice rang out of his thoughts, it's okay. I just need to look at my mother. Ron said nothing just looking at her mother. Suddenly there were people in the chant, the homeowner was coming in. The footsteps of the familiar red robe entered. It's been a long time since Glenn Ziegert's 5 years ago, his gaze looked at the man in. And sit on the homeowner position. He majestic brightly on the throne. Then starting to declare, it seems that everyone is full. Glenn Ziegert has just finished a giant sword in the hall. Ron looked at him thinking, it was a judge, starting the ritual of judgment. Start the ritual of judgment. If you put your hand on the sword, it can tell how much your talent uses mana. Ron looks at the sword intently thinking. The servant shouted, started, the first, Burden Ziegert. There is a boy about 4 years old speaking, yes. Then the boy moved forward and put his hand in the giant sword. The skull of a child was somewhat unexplained when he was 4 years old. He just started to close and united with each other after that. The possibility of the ability using mana will not change anymore, Ron thinks. That is why the children gathered to know what their mana talent reached in this judgment ritual. Suddenly, there was a surprised voice to say that everyone was talking about, oh the boy had the right manner to look at the glowing sword, the mana quality of the boy was also the best talented talent, it was true that his son Karun. The owner of Glen felt so appreciated, this attribute was not bad very suitable for a swordsman, so he focused on feeling the energy of the wind. Next is the Runnan Sullian from this Sullian vassal clan this time is called a girl with lovely platinum hair standing up. Ron on one side began to think, I can see how this sword works on the blade will show the purity of mana and the mana attribute is shown at the head of the sword. So this is how he determined the talent of others, Ziegert. A genius from Sunlian's house again, not suddenly the girl wearing the surname Sullian where she has the same role as Mr. Burin. The chanting sounds continue to resound. The people in this house are all haunted photo by 2 talented words, Raon looked. I guess my results will not be good even though success has achieved 2-star fire, but in my Monner circuit, there is still a lot of cold air of ice icy. I don't care anyway. The assistant's voice resounded the last person. Everyone stared at Raon Ziegert. Glenn also looked at him. Please move forward. In the hall, all eyes are poured towards Ron. Sylvia beside smiled and said, let's Raon, yes. I also do not expect anything just to check what properties will suit this body, and what kind of future it should be developed in the future. I see how the children first, just do not do the same thing, Sylvia instructed, yes, I know. Raon advanced close to the sword. He put his hand on the sword. Suddenly a yellow light appeared. What is that light? He saw a man holding the sword. That man is facing many ferocious monsters. I am seeing what scenes like this. Who is this person? Only see the man holding the sword to the sky. A sword slashed down the monster. A large explosion appeared, all the surrounding monsters were destroyed into smoke. Raon looked at the great sword, Hasao thatch sword. Look at the light that has not shown up to half the sword. At this time, the owner Glenn spoke, the judgment right has ended, the people who have gone. Everyone's face is often clearly leaving. Let's go, Mr. Burin. Everyone left, the door closed again. Only the Lord and the butler. Glenn spoke to the butler to guess nothing, sir. The butler standing next to him did not know what to say. I think the boy can only be that anyway, I don't ask for anything from this child. Thinking, Glenn suddenly glared in surprise. The sword now emits hot light needles. Thatch Kiem is emitting the optical needle of the sun. Ziegert's first glory is a terrible power strong enough to reconcile the fire. Golden Man and Golden Mana gold medal with this type only appeared once. Glenn opened the book to read and talk. Only throughout the history of the Ziegert clan. It is beautiful and beautiful with dazzling metallic. Kim Hoa, Glenn looked up at the sword. Raon, this nephew, Glenn eyes full of joy and expectation. At this time observing his status window, the name Raon Ziegert, the title has not had the state of the Cuckoo Company. Why, Raon said. It seems that I am preparing to reach the third fire, he happily said. 7 years have passed since the first judgment ceremony took place, now I am 12 years old. 7 years from the ritual of judgments, and with regular practice, my 2 Hone Fire Councils are about to increase into 3, if I can cure the tape, my growth rate will be faster. My water resistance has increased to 2 stars, and now the Han spreads throughout the body no longer available, so my limbs are no longer stiff. Of course, the movement of my body it is also very difficult, but compared to before, it is much better. At that moment a call rang. Rom. It was your mother's voice. What I have to prepare, but what are you doing here? Come on, not late. He replied, yes, Raon thought, it's time for me to participate in the second judgment ritual. Maybe I will have to see those confusing things again. A moment later Raon appeared in the rite of judgment and finally, the door was opened, the voice rang out, then, in the end, Langrisser Legerter, he was hard, so the ritual of judgment here was the ending. Urge. Perhaps because only people of the new side here, everything happened faster than I thought, Raon sat there thinking, perhaps because only people, the new side here so everything acted I think faster than I think. A call from above calls your name, Ron Ziegert. Surely I have also received the order, must participate in the basic training as a member of the family, so why have you not responded for a month? The voice of the owner ranged to break his thoughts, what he was saying so basic training. Raon is still not understanding what happened. Sylvia at the side spoke, Dad, Raon was different from other children, the boy still had the body, so the training was still too hard for the boy. Raon looked at, she thought, Sylvia already knew this. Glenn strictly says this place is Ziegert's territory with no exception or refusing to refuse the people who have received the name Ziegert if they cannot go, then crawl to go there to go to a Ziegert family to have such a spirit. Hearing that, Sylvia immediately begged, could not, please give me some time. Seeing Sylvia begged the owner to say angrily, if not, I was going to run away again, bring it with you. On this land you can only live as a Ziegert family. If you don't like it, go away from here. The gossip of the gossip rang out. What she was going to escape would be very interesting, now she has no mind or magic circuit to break it anymore. I cannot believe that such a person is a direct lineage. Sylvia stood there and bowed his face down to hear those criticisms. Hearing the contemptuous words of the other people at this time, Raon realized why Sylvia was treated like that. It's because she left this family. There was no anger, even though she learned martial arts, it means that she broke the mind of energy and the mana circuit was completely destroyed by her mother and met my father and married him with him. But after pregnancy my father died. And she has no choice but returns home. Because she had abandoned her position to live the direct lineage and now she returned, so she had to take the lower treatment than a member of the foreign family, however. That is the views of others and are their own situations. As for the son of Sylvia, I could not stand it when I saw my mother being treated like that. After that, Raon stood up the money forward. Raon did something back here, the owner, I will take care of this so please. No problem, Mom, he replied. Under the order, my son will participate in the training course starting next month as what he has commanded. Raon steadfastly speaking out, but I don't even know that there is a multi-course. Vo Tam Den Denier Ziegert saw that, no matter what it was called, the basic training was not at the level that a patient could withstand children, so he retreated immediately. I have brought my surname Ziegert, so I will have to pay for that. I will participate in the training. I dare to dirty the name Ziegert, huh? Do you understand the severity when mentioning the name Ziegert? Glenn angrily looking at Rom said. A stream of pressure made him sweat. His mouth immediately coughed out a pinch of blood. It feels like my flesh is being torn into that piece. Even if just the eye can affect me, so it feels like my heart is cramping. It even affects me more than Robert's more. Is this the warrior of the Northern Destruction King? Sylvia and Helen Maid now rushed to support Raon. Mr. Raon was still young, so he did not know what he was saying. Denier Ziegert also prayed, Sir Boy is still just a one. The baby doesn't know anything, please take the pressure to put on the boy. I'm saying. Glenn shouted. Denier Fear immediately apologize, I'm sorry. Raon's health cannot practice, please recover the pressure. Raon examined her mother's arms with anxiety. The assassin is the people who live the darkness. Always closer to death than life, they will never reveal themselves. But now I'm no longer an assassin as before. I won't live the darkness anymore. Raon gradually awakened. I won't live like another assassin. I'm Raon Ziegert. And I will bring Sylvia back to her inherent position. Come to think of it, Raon immediately stood up and said no, because I had grown up a secondary mansion, not the main building. I didn't know the arrogant Ziegert name was why I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Called Ziegert how really by participating in training. As Raon, I will protect Sylvia. The happiness and smiles of the precious people with me. I will definitely regain everything with this hand, Raon thought in my heart. At this time, the voice of Glenn resounded my idea that it would evaluate the Ziegert clan through that basic training process. Right now, that's the only way for me to learn about the Ziegert clan. Then we will have to check everything to ensure that the instructor has prepared. In order not to disappoint. In my previous life, I was the best assassin and now I'm a person who learns about the legend of the Fire continent if I can take advantage of all the ability from them to get a high position of the clan. Cannot. I will show you how tough you despise. A moment later at the Junior Martial Arts were announcing the last story with a man. Isn't the boy a patient who can't move stars, the owner of the heart, Karun Ziegert? Yes, only one or two servants eavesdrop on the conversation between holy and homeowners. Before seeing his boy's body was not normal, why could he withstand the pressure from him, Karun thought. He coughed a few voice, now thinking back, Sylvia was also the most talented person. He ordered, installed people to the mansion, Junior said, clearly. The fastest act possible. And report all that happens there. At Ziegert, the school training school, Glen strode, the people around speak loudly, we welcome the chief to visit, welcome him, the Lord of the Lord. A red-haired man was sleeping, the hat covered his face. The Lord went in and put on his words, don't pretend to sleep, stand up to Rimmer. At this time, the red-haired man named Rimmer immediately sat up in surprise, oh my God, could not believe it. He was the only one who saw through my skill of pretending that the patriarch, which was Kwang Kiem Rimmer Diish. The coaches are sweating and ran back and forth, but you are leisurely here, the patriarch asked. Rimmer replied, they would naturally listen to my command, I use the head and those people work labor. Fair limbs only. 50 years and you're still like a child, the patriarch said. Rimmer smiled and replied, the person changed was dead but I was ELF. But he came here because his youngest nephew, he asked again. Lady Sylvia also came to me but did not expect the patriarch himself to come like this, heard that the patriarch asked again, Sylvia had come here, Rimmer replied, she asked me not to let Raon injured. If he also had that intention, maybe his trip was wasted and the patriarch himself said no one could interfere with the school training school even. He is worried about his youngest grandson, I have no exception, Rimmer said against his hips. Glenn answered calmly, of course, surprised Rimmer. Do not reduce the intensity of exercise, keep strengthening until you find it appropriate and eliminate the weak, he said. Then his grandson was chased by the head of his Italian clan, Rimmer set his mouth. Oh my God loves my children and grandchildren more than I thought, did he not take care of the kind-hearted lady so he put his love for that child, he hugged his face shyly, if you were not your teammates. I am in the army, I have given you the head. Do not lean on the boy and remember to clearly identify good people and bad people, leaving only those who meet the standards to train, the patriarch said. Rimmer turned to bow, so reverent is not as good as obeying the destiny. Yeah, just do what you want me to go, the patriarch turns to leave, the Rimmer welcomes it, yes the path carefully, the patriarch. He crossed his arms, Raon, I was very curious about you. At this time Raon is considering its system table that has received, the third fire honed at 3 stars, your body and soul have been a bit stronger thanks to the effect of the 3-star fire, the strength quick and fast and endurance has increased thanks to the effect of the 3-star fire, the affinity of the will and the energy has strengthened thanks to the effect of the 3-star fire, the water resistance to 3 stars, one of the 9 fibers of the curse of the bone was gone. 3 stars are completely another level. Rom is a bit happy to think that her body's cognitive ability has increased her mind more smoothly than before. Why do you have to force yourself like that in the first few days? Naturally, he thought that, thanks to Sylvia, his arms and legs had developed without having many difficulties. In addition, this magic status window also promotes its growth more. But this is the beginning, the training of the Ziegert clan is famous for being austere hardship. 3 stars are just the essential foundation to start with, the apprenticeship position in the family to have a solid foundation to build a large house and live through the days of the following days. By showing more achievement than the person I will make the names that have been sarcastically sarcasm. So after all, holy Tian Kiem Daris Ruber. I won't stop until his neck cuts. Suddenly calling from outside, Raon. Why are you not sleeping? The sound of Super Via makes him escape from thinking, a mother. Why are you coming here now? He asked. Tomorrow you will go to the training school to start practicing basic right, but I come to tell you. You have to go. Actually, I still want to stop you from being suppressed even if I have pain. I don't know what to do if you are injured all over my body during practice. It's not that I don't let you go, but only a year to postpone a year, Sylvia said with an worried face. I can't back down. Whenever they see relatives from near and far, they see their expressions as if they were looking at a weak person when they despise their mother. I still feel so angry so I can't false. He put his hand on his chest and said loudly. As long as they practice well they will not be able to despise people anymore, Raon steadfastly said. Sylvia smiled. She took her hand to say, the smart child Rayon must have realized why I had to live alone and why people cursed me. I met my father and son while on duty and fell in love with him, but because of the fate of the father and son, we were hard to be together. So we have destroyed our mana circuit and energy and then left the family. Actually, I also have an older sister who is a 2-year-old child named Shia. Living peacefully, a army came from Eris. My father is not so strong, I am still pregnant. So we can't do anything. Fortunately, my father always silently sent a guard to protect me, but they were far away when they arrived. It was too late. At that time, my father and my sister lost my life. We have no place to go without any other options, we have to return to the family, so we are considered a criminal of this family. I don't know what to say to my grandfather. Raon thought in his heart, so selfish. Sylvia was really selfish. She left the family's responsibility on her shoulder to pursue her own happiness, to return just to ask for the conceiving. I understood why she was treated so harshly, so she was human. My only mother in 2 lives. But she is also the one who gave her a new life for the first time. She met the person who truly loved her so much, even though they all thought she was selfish, at least to me. Come to think of it, Raon suddenly asked, whether the mother regretted it. Did she want to go back to the time before leaving home? Sylvia answered, nowhere, I did not regret it. We lived as if not existing in this house. Only when we left here we really feel that vitality is enough. At that time we were really happy, and now we are happy because we have children in life. I am very sorry, Ram, I am not a good mother. It's okay, I'm okay, don't worry. He is very happy in his heart. He puts his hand on Sylvia's hand. Even if others have criticized the mother, it is selfish that the precious mother cannot be replaced by her child. The revenge will succeed after I help her regain the position of the Ziegert family inheritance. Sylvia, tears flowed along her cheeks. She looked at her and touched. She cried like a child. Raon asked, confused, her mother, why did people cry? A while later, he went out to sigh. His mother calmly calmed down. I should check the progress of the fire and sleep just too long as the training session. He sat with his arms and feet on the bed. Also, the speed of the rotation was faster after reaching 3 stars, and then 3 stars were so when it came to the intermediate stage. How fast it was, right? Suddenly a light appeared and it also sounded a voice. Finally the time. Your wrath has touched me, the quintessence of the name of the Ma-Tun, the second of the wrath I will pay you. What is this thing that Raon looks at the soul in front of you without understanding? At this time, the notice of the system shows unknown energy that has been triggered by wrath that has been created by awakening. Your wrath has touched the quintessence of the Emperor. In the name of the second ghost of the ghost of the ghost of the spirit, I will take revenge on you. Your body and soul. Why is there a child here? Raon asked in surprise. What are you? I have to ask that question. Who you are? The wrath I feel is not something like you can emit. He suddenly discovered something. It is not that you are in your heart, you are hiding a very deep resentment. So please give me the soul in exchange for you will help you to pay for your vengeance. Rayon thought he appeared because of his indignation with Darius before he died, but now it's too late. Raon answered, I didn't need you to help. He asked, he said, I will take revenge on myself. Raon thought, I never had this chance for a second time, could not let other people take revenge on the household. I would be the one who took Darius's head. He said, it seems that you are confused and kid. I don't go to negotiate with you. I have made the decision at the quintessence. At this moment, a cold blue flame surrounded around the body made Raon a bit surprised. What, this fire is so cold, May? You just need to sacrifice your body. Rushing at this time laughed, and the blue flame also broke out violently, rushing towards Ron. He sweated at that fire and worried. It rushed into the Ron body. Then suddenly everything became quiet again, the cup of water on the table did not have any movement. Raon hugged his chest, so cold that his body did not even his mind felt like being frozen, so his elemental attribute must be ice, not fire. Go to him, release your wrath. Even if they are true, the quintessence will end them. Raon is still immersed in his thoughts. Thanks to his water resistance, he can endure a little more, but this attack is not simply impact on the temperature. He continuously incite your anger. I will smash my head and eat the blood and drink his blood to surrender and dedicate my body. If I give him this body, who knows what he will do with Sylvia and the servant in the house? If he dies, he cannot sacrifice his body, Raon thinks. If you release your own prosperity and accept me, you will feel comfortable, but you choose to continue struggling in a meaningful way. I did not want to hurt this body to use it later. I will not hold back with you anymore, just devouring you to finish the story. Resentment constantly lashing, Raon sinks into thinking, my body feels like going to shatter, so I touched the limit and this body couldn't stay for a long time. I would die soon and I would like to live. Suddenly he awakened because of the strange feeling. If I can resist aura thanks to water resistance, then it is likely that I will endure the mental and physical pain when using fire. If you want to live, this is the only way. Raon decided to use the fire to fight resentment, and seeing the metallic fire of resentment immediately. He has won. I just woke up how that happened, but a low-necked person dared to challenge me, resentment angrily said. We will take revenge on our own to refuse to make a soul wandering in our body. Raon eyes full of determination to look at him. The soul is wandering, how dare you call the ghost of the world a hard soul? Resentment angrily, Raon said, dare to call himself Ma Tun while not defeating me. Or is it true that Ma Tun died and you should disappear? Resentment was said to be gritted his teeth, how dare you hook me? Just now, he said that he was just awakening, that was why he could not use his entire strength, Raon thought. Suddenly the system appeared, he thought, what was the energy that complemented? Why suddenly? Raon still did not understand what happened. Resentment has shouted, is my power window, why do you own it? Raon said, your parameters have already appeared, the data already. The status window with the message is what is related to you. Raon doubted that, of course, then that the system was myself created, but you know why you can use it? Raon asked. System for what? I have nothing to tell you. Raon heard that immediately, this is also the promotion of growth. Resentment suddenly asked, why? How do you know? Raon thinks, he doesn't even control his emotions, no wonder he is wrath. It is strange for the effect of the fire to be stronger than the previous life, so all thanks to the system. Resure to sacrifice your body and return the power to me, resentment angrily shouted. Pay here quickly. What do you think you're doing? But now Raon doesn't care about him. It is worth a punch, even if that punch, I haven't used much mana yet. He was an invisible soul, so aura could not do anything to him. Resentment, why did a person dare to treat me like that? Raon folded his arms to look at him thinking, from just now he show off like that, but no one appears. Perhaps I was the only one who could see and feel him. Raon continued to swing his hand to hit resentment. Yoke. Support, this is when Raon's hand beats to resentment and being smashed. And turned into a bracelet of his hand. He looked at the bracelet, this is. My seal is only broken, but my strength will return. When you have no way to stop me, I will haunt you until you have no rage again. After saying that, resentment thoroughly silence, he was so bothered, I really wanted to kill him. Raon looked at the cycle of thinking. But if he forced him to separate from his system, he could disappear, and who knew what he would do with Helen to catch himself. Keeping him with him for more than that, he will believe in his ability to progress, hoping that he can counter him. Raon tells himself to look at the wreath on his hand. Raon was a bit uncomfortable, a little unrelated, but why did you choose a flower bracelet? But it didn't suit you at all. My personal preferences do not have to evaluate, resentment and anger to answer, no, it is so disgusting. The next morning, at the submansion. Sylvia is still worried about Raon of Helen's maid to comfort, the young master will be okay, I know, but still. At this time Raon's voice rang, I was ready. He stepped down, I went to the training school. The young master remembered not to force himself to, Helen told Raon. Raon replied, I remember Helen, I will go home. Helen now spoke, Lady Sylvia, she saw the young master but was not happy, so the young master would feel that heart. Raon, go carefully, do not worry as I told you too hard, then ignore it, do not try too much. Sylvia holds hands on the sun. Then Raon said goodbye to them. Sylvia asked, everything will be okay? Helen replied, the young master has improved a lot and he will overcome training and return. That's right, compared to the previous time the boy was much better, but this child, Sylvia thought. Lady Sylvia, this time the teacher is famous as Ziegert, with Raon's efforts, he will do it. Then before leaving, Sylvia could not hug the child crying. Helen encouraged. That's right, my mother promised that I won't let myself be injured, Raon also said. People do not worry, you will definitely keep words. Just believe in me. Sylvia holds hands, Ron. Come back to peace. She quietly looked at her son in tears. At Ziegert the number of years of training. At this time, there were many people. What house you came from? Probably not too thirsty for the student. My parents told me to get into the top 10. Everyone stirred up and chatted. Raon also came to see the scene in front of him, a little surprised, just as rumored that many people came here. Not only relatives to the Ziegert training school, but also the vassals nominated by the vassal family. According to Helen, because this year many people are so much, they still have to build 6 training schools, and immediately people realize that Raon starts to talk, isn't it him? Looking at his muscular muscles, he must have touched and crumbled the disease, as he's certainly only halfway to run and what he had to come here to show off. But the old flower bracelet has been out of time, so outdated. Resentment hears someone dare to decry me, immediately angrily speaking, what do you say? The trash of you are the nobles with the eyes like the elite, the emperor will smash the flesh and then hook your eyes, but of course, no one can hear its voice now. Raon, speak out, 2 people have to talk. Speaking frankly on my face, these 2 men turned to look, You don't know how to say bad things behind others, Raon said frankly to them. Those 2 immediately responded, how dare you, but obviously you are a spoiled child and are forced to live in the court, the secondary house. You are a foreigner who is not a direct lineage. You have any identity that uses the word to use while yourself only carries the generation lineage, Raon asks. Not from there, only for people with a position lower than me. Why did the other 2 hurt angry? A man rushed to grab Raon's collar. You really did not know what he swung his hand to beat Ron now. He was also ready to just need him to attack him. He would know his hand, but at this moment a voice stopped right away. What are you doing in the training session? The main speaker was Baron Ziegert, descendants of the Orthodox. The other 2 immediately feared to apologize. Mr. Byrne, I apologized. Byrne turned to talk to Rayon. And you also have to know the fate. You are just a small grain of sand that I want to brush off if you don't want to be kicked out of the auxiliary building. If you live a peaceful life. Byrne is a bit angry to see Rayon. Byrne thought, the foolish boy in front of us has attracted all the attention of the patriarch, but it is to use the situation instead of using his true ability. An uneducated name has no door to train but dares to. Come to think of it, Byrne is a bit contemptuous. If you are not planning to take the training course, then go out of here, then stay away from my eyes, because you will not be able to overcome this training course. Where Raon knew that if he was still soft and weak for them to bully them, he would not be peaceful in this training camp. He immediately said, I heard him, nonsense enough already. You belong to the direct lineage, but you don't have any ranking. You are going to chase me out of the sub-building. You think you can do it while you are not even a student. Oh, I guess you may have the opportunity to do that if you go crying and pray to your father. Byrne heard that, angrily shouted loudly a descendants. But at this moment, the door of the training camp has opened. Rimmer. He smiled and said, Wow has not been fighting. I guess it is because you have the spirit of young people. Rayon thought, it was not the Rimmer Kwang Kiem of the Ziegert clan. Why did he hear that he had retired after the heart was damaged? Unexpectedly, he was here, or after the opening ceremony. The children continue to fight. Rimmer's voice rang again. Byrne in his heart was angry, but did not dare to take any action. At this time, Rimmer has just started to introduce and welcome the teachers who are the chiefs who will monitor their practice process. The teacher's name is Rimmer. I hope we will cooperate smoothly. He heard that up to 160 students participated in the training, but only 8 people instructed. What kind of students? Look, too many students, so we will reduce that number down by testing. Exactly, only a quarter only. Hearing that, the students opened their mouths in surprise. Just kept that. How could this person not this? A small number of people only. Hearing that, resentment could not help but speak. This arrogant bastard dared to despise the quintessence of the emperor. I will tear the ear of this goblin. Not to stop the sentence. It has been beaten by Raon for one. Quietly go away. At this training school, the teacher is the law. If you have any reaction to meet the patriarch, we start. At this time, the students were still bewildered and did not understand anything. The Rimmer's voice was accompanied by a skillful laugh. He did, and quickly ran away. After a bewildered second, the students started competing to run their lives, endurance and the will of the martial arts, running a few rounds in the gymnasium until we told you to stop. stop running at the speed. Maximum for us, Rimmer Pleasure says loudly. He seems to be very interested in this. Redillum now stuck out to talk to Ron with an angry tone. If you want to run, you have to overcome it first, but just in the back, why did he suddenly run to run? This is not an unnecessary competition to overcome others. The Rimmer is considered to be a person's potential and personality. He did not notice the things outside. Those who can endure will pass this test, that they will definitely stay in the end. At this time, on the observatory of coaches who are discussing young Master Burn and Lady Runnin is true. They all do very well, but the other two children still stand out. This is still not their maximum speed. At that pace they can run for hours. Only 12 years old and has reached that level. How do I think about the future of these children? I feel wary of. And the other child is the boy in the rumor. Nothing surprisingly, the boy could not keep up continuously and dropped behind that child who had the disease, and running at that speed was impressive. They talked to Rom. The boy looked tired and probably slipped soon. Rimmer was also watching Rom. He showed a puzzled smile. Thinking, interesting, I have met a child like it yet. I thought that only people who could not see the potential were the strongest because they could not see through their deepness. We can see the characteristics and colors of those children, know what the future they will become. But there is Raon. Why? We can't see any color. Means the boy's potential is beyond my perception, or cough. But the two students who were previously contemptuous Raon now saw him left behind. They began to talk with a gloating tone, seeing that it had not been arrogant, and then standing at the end. He should be grateful to because of the last way. I was about to slip and look, its naive expression. I could not go through 10 minutes. Raon did not pay attention to these words. He was thinking about this training. Could not. Just training, why do they just run so? In the previous life, they dropped some monsters who were starving for a long time, and they had to run their lives to survive and did not have to run like this. So simple. Raon runs and smiled. Under the intense sunlight, all students are trying to run all their best to run forward. Raon dropped behind. Mr. Rimmer looked at him with thought. Rimmer feels quite surprised for the boy, telling himself, that boy is okay, how can he continue to run? He looked at Raon trying to keep up with you, sweating like rain, thinking, his body should have been running out for a long time. This is still beyond what people call it perseverance or stubbornness. This boy should not have any physical strength to continue. So great will only exist in warriors who have been constantly practicing and experience in the door of death countless times. How this kid can have such a strong will. Okay. Rimmer put his hand on his chin and smiled and said, Raon Ziegert, interesting. In the yard, everyone was gathered to run. Young Master Burn sweated. He looked back at Rom. He felt surprised, uncomfortable, thinking, why, how he could continue running. I was sure that he had no conditions to practice. Burn recalled, in one eavesdropping on the conversation of the Holy Holy, he heard that, according to the Holy Holy word, the son of Sylvia was likely to die, so forget to become a warrior, and he was even worse at the last time I saw him. As if, Burn thought. All of them, it's so annoying. Okay, I will show them. After saying that, he used his superpowers, controlled aura, blue light emitted around. Burn told himself that there was a huge difference between us, so much so that you want to let go and surrender. He overcame Runnan and Raon to take the leading position. Runna and Raon looked up at Burn. The two of them felt quite surprised. Raon told himself, despite the noble style, he was just a kid. Psychologically, Runnan was even more successful than him. Raon looked to Runnan. We do not compete with each other in this test, this is a confrontation with ourselves. There is no reason because he has a disorder of his current pace. Under the intense sunlight, the clear blue sky without a wind passed. Most of the students were exhausted, some people could not even stand, sitting on the ground and breathing down. A male practitioner told a female friend, damn it, what the hell is this, how can he run? The female friend said, I'm sure people say he is a person braided. The two of them looked at Ron ahead, she was still trying to follow. The female said, he knew what tired was that. Raon was trying to follow the front, he fluttered his face, sweating on his face, silently, stopping ate bullshit like this very easily. I was about to die to the place because of the cold of the body, then hear this. Under the heat emanating from under the chest, Raon thought, feeling like his heart and lungs were being forced, but somehow he could still prolong his physical strength through optimization of use. Fire. He silently smiled, looked forward, told himself, the only thing worth relieving here was that the fire hone was developing quickly. I guess I need to show my best so that it can maximum validity, if I keep like this. The voice of resentment rang out of Raon's thoughts, how pathetic you are, even though your body will be possessed by the quintessence of the Emperor, you are not only being left behind, but look at it. In your despicable state. Resentment appears, look at Raon, smile the evil smile, give me it, give your body to the quintessence of the Emperor, in addition to overcome that blue hair name. Raon feels quite helplessly swearing, damn, this is the worst time for this. Resentment, we will make them completely motionless. There are electric current running through Raon's body, it seems that his body is numb, losing the feeling in a second. He bit his teeth, silently told himself, he had to endure. The senses are leaving themselves because of the indignation, but I need to pretend that nothing happens as much as possible, he just tells himself, and runs forward under the hot sunshine of summer, the tomb foul flows continuously. On one side, Ling Ling laughed cleverly, do not make me laugh, how can you not be affected, no one in this world can endure the indignation of the quintessence. Raon is angry, look at the resentment, do not do your stupid games anymore and leave it alone, that will not be valid on me. Resentment looked at Ram's appearance on her chest to endure her happy physical abuse, to see how long you could try. Raon gasped to himself, I had to endure it, if I show weakness now. He thought of the sight of his collapse, telling himself, he would rush in to tear himself immediately. One side resented angrily screaming, this stubborn bastard, why is the indignation of the quintessence of the Emperor not valid? Raon ran and breathed hard, his running steps seemed to slow down. Raon thought, it was really painful, it felt like I was about to die, I couldn't even check my body anymore. He looked ahead, his eyelids seemed to be something heavy, could not open, the thought of thinking continuously, the visual was blurred, I could not even breathe for the person. Royal. However, his steadfast gaze glowed, seemingly nothing to stop him, he thought, this is the farthest point I can achieve. In a corner of the schoolyard, the classmates were sitting and breathing, the voice of a female friend rang, hey, you can use it already. Raon put his hand on his knees to breathe, one side of Burn said, you really stubborn it. Raon breathed hard and told himself that he almost died there, this life would not be easy at all. On one side, the lady Runnan looked to Raon's breathing look, she was quiet, not knowing that she was thinking. Resentment appears, looking at the pathetic appearance of Raon, that is, it is true that a monster, how you, Raon replied, that's why I told me that it was useless, it there is no effect on me. Raon thought, even so, it obviously helped the growth of the fire, his thoughts continued continuously, his hand brought up his chest, where he was emitting a burning flame, thinking continued, adding more another body has also developed, thanks to the status window, if I continue to practice like this, I can definitely be able to. Suddenly there was the voice of the system resounding to cut off Raon's thoughts, he and Resentment all gathered on the notification screen. The display of the display system, the conditions that have been met, moves extreme in excess of the limit of their own physical strength, the indicators have been strengthened, strongly increased, the agility has increased, physical strength increased. Resentment besides resentment, what is happening like this, why does it give you more index because you have overcome the attack of the quintessence of the star? Raon also feels surprised. Raon feels quite shocked, thinking, this is so ridiculous. At the end of the test, everyone gathered together, doing well everyone, we will end the test here. Mr. Rimmer stood on the podium. The voice of the teacher rang, well, and what I told you before running, your faces were tightly closed, afraid to wait for the teacher to continue. I said that I would remove all and keep it only a quarter of those children. Mr. Rimmer laughed and raised his hand at the students. All the students in the yard were shocked, the voice was loud, what, she ran all my best just because of that. Mr. Rimmer said, no life I will eliminate so many students like that on the first day, they have no life for me to continue to teach if I do that. In addition, I don't say if you will eliminate you after this test. Mr. Rimmer's face seriously, quietly said, but if you keep practicing like that today, then the thunderstorms will be eliminated at all. The students seemed to be worried, they were quiet when listening to the words he said. Mr. Rimmer walked away and his voice rang out, obviously I told the children to run all the force, but no one of the 160 people, running all the power until the end, except for one person. And there are one of the children still so dare to use aura, the voice of the teacher rang, making Burn scared, his face is clearly stressed. He walked up next to Raon to sit down, laughing happily, actually what they did not matter, because the person who was taking the test was the children, not me. Mr. Rimmer raised his hand to create an oak symbol in front of Raon, however, they will definitely not slip the test as long as they do it as if my instructions, so don't worry about that, then it is not easy. Looking at the faces below, Mr. Rimmer said, from this moment will become a temporary rookie, I will remove the temporary word if you pass the test in the next 6 months. He just laughed happily, 2 fingers raised up, and said, so I was planning to choose a top rookie, but I would not rank them anywhere. Well, the children will be able to experience the most luxurious residence that the family has prepared, and there is an indoor training ground on the left side, so I can go there to see it, Mr. Rimmer continued. The scene changes on a road section, next to the old green trees. It seems that there is some sound that is emitting. Mr. Rimmer is coming, in front of a mysterious guest who has not been exposed. I have a guest waiting in my dream, right? The voice of the Rimmer rang. The mysterious man turned his face. That was the patriarch of the Glen Ziegert, Rimmer continued. My chief, Glen replied, how it was. Rimmer leaned back on a saying, he should not be the one who asked me about that, he must have seen everything, because he came here and then. Rimmer thought of the faces of Byrne and Runnan. He also knew how good I was to judge others. As expected, Byrne and Runnan have the most outstanding talent, and other children also have the potential to become the pillar of the mainstay in the future clan. However, the voice of the Rimmer is talking about for a few seconds. Rimmer remembered Rom's face, continued, I saw nothing from Ron. I do not understand why that boy can continue running at the end. The boy's physicalization must be exhausted from the end before. This is the first time I have seen something like that from the time. At the end I saw him, Lord, Rimmer said. Mr. Rimmer happily smiled and continued, everything passed by boring since my mind was dissipated, but I felt that this would be very interesting here. Glen said, you are the one who demanded to become a guidance for the other soldiers, and then he got angry. The voice of the Lord rang out, your job is not to find joy, but to raise children to become warriors of the Ziggerheart acceleration. Limer replied, of course, my lord. Rimmer crossed his arms leaning on the tree, laughing, and I felt that I would be able to entrust my future in the number one of those rookie. Glen replied, just coincidentally, that boy could hardly become a warrior. The distance of the two people is getting more and more apart, the talk stops, leaving only the harsh sunlight of the summer day. Rimmer laughed and made a voice, he knew it was not the truth. The students were looking at Raon. While he did not pay attention, Raon talked to Resentment. The basic training ended, we went back to the training school. Resentment, after all, even those things, that guy is too ugly. Everyone looked towards Ron, turned away in silence, no sound emitted. It seems that Rom will have many difficulties in life here. Everyone's face is quite uncomfortable. Many people feel unhappy when he stays back. In the afternoon, how beautiful the sunset scene. Someone's voice broke that scene, so unreasonable. It turned out that the voice was emitted in a corner of the wall, where the students were gathering to talk about Ron. He stood against his hips. Unless he had a game, it was impossible for him to stay so long. The friend sat on the chair. He said that I had to hear about his illness. The blond young man crossed his arms and folded his unpleasant face, definitely because of the fairy. And then, thinking about that fairy bottle, I heard that wholly resentful rumor to him. The voice of the friends resounded continuously. Ha, that day did that, why? The expression of the two friends was extremely angry. One said, so he ran to rely on the power of Tian medicine. The blue-haired man beside his hand clenched, extremely angry answer, but also pretend that you are very talented because you have to stay at the end. The blonde friend smirked the smile, so I was thinking, whether we should give that complacent bastard a lesson. After that, Raon was pulled out by a blonde. He was beaten, hitting a large tree trunk. The cries emitted continuously. The Rom's face was extremely bad. Raon sat under a tree, raised his face and said, why did he suddenly do that? The blonde smiling happily, ha, you don't know. The boys behind were extremely angry, pointing towards Raon to continue. Unpleasant tone, you were abandoned by the orthodox lineage but also dared to brag while you only took advantage of the power of what kind of medicine? You have it, the remaining blue-haired guy said loudly, if you don't have a fairy medicine, there's no way to run like today. Why are you doing the game of cats with us? The people of the eagle descendants have no abnormalities, the voice emitted continuously. Raon looked up at their bugs, the face of emotional thoughts, truly childish, still children with this ridiculous reason. Well, it's not afraid, we take you here to confide. Then he raised his hand to rub the shoulder to prepare for the action. The other person rubbed his face with a frustrating face. Rightly, the ads were appointed to chat with you're okay. The blond young man stood in the middle of a smile. Don't worry, this happened often, and then the evil smiles appeared on their faces. The blonde user used the power to hit the punch forward, laughed, you heard the teacher said, must interact and learn from each other. At this time, Resentment from where the porch, looking at Rom, who said, my owner was treated like that, but I could not help it, even though it was not sad. Suddenly Raon had to work, He punched the blonde with bright red blood. Screams shocked the corner of the forest. Two friends went to feel scared. The wide pieces stuffed the egg. The sweat poured on the face. Raon punched the blonde name so strong that he fell, and the other two seemed to be surprised, standing motionless. It happened outside the plan, looking at the scene of Rom back and forth. My friends were shocked. Her mouth opened wide and stuffed with apple, and did not make a sound. Raon said, talking, yeah, you're right, on the ground, a blonde young man is falling. He lost the temporary signal. The dangerous smile on his lips, rotating his wrist joints, moving his body, talking with his fist. Towards the friend next to Raon with his hand acting on the nearest arm, causing the other guy to lose his balance without standing. Then Raon used his knees, defeated the opponent, and the screams resounded. At this time, while his friend was collapsing on the ground, moaning from the pain, the moan emitted the opposite person looking at him shouting, "What did you do? Why did you lose?" Before you can finish your words, where did Ron come from to use the fist to act on this facial? He fell to the ground. The blonde name when he just regained consciousness, he heard the scream beside him, he was crawling on the ground miserably. Resentment saw that, his eyes sparkled like starlight, his face was worshipped. You just punched them, this scene was 1,000 years. On the other side Raon launched the fastest, most accurate punches, his opponent was defeated. He was beaten to the point where he could only collapse to the ground, his face and bruising, emitting a moan in his throat unknown. The friends were beaten by Raon to the point where they could not protest, they were lying on the ground. Please, don't, I can't breathe anymore, the blonde young man at first loudly, he was so cowardly, please prostrate, they forgive, they I'm wrong, stop hand. Raon used his feet to step on his hand, the moan screamed non-stop, ooh ooh. Before the end of everything, I asked him a question, Raon smiled wickedly, the blonde bite his teeth, suffering, okay. Who is the one who makes you guys doing so? Is Burin, right? The Raon sounds that make the blonde surprise, the time seems to be dumbfounded at that moment. The blonde guy answered, not that we hide him, Burin was not related to this. Hearing the answer, Ron remembered Burin thinking, surprisingly, thinking he disliked him, probably he was not so ugly. You guys will not tell the fellow subjects about the confession today, the voice of Raon rang, the blonde friend shivered, of course not already. Raon used force, grabbed his hair to make his blonde friend painful, moaning, eh. Raon looked at him blonde threatening, okay, if you do not want to talk tomorrow, then try to stay away from me tomorrow. The blonde fear, cold sweat flowing like rain, pupils shrinking, trembling, we will not touch you anymore, we are wrong, if you understand then go away, Raon said. In the distance from a certain tree, the teacher Rimmer witnessed everything, watching the children leave him a mysterious smile. Looking towards the Rimmer, it is a beautiful scene, feeling like witnessing the Lord when you're young, the boy's blood is true, it also has martial arts talent as well as. Smile on Rimmer's lips emitting whisper, a hidden jade among the best talented, I am looking forward to that guy Raon Ziegert. Life at night silent, quiet so much, the moonlight silently illuminated, most people were sleeping, only a few rooms were still light. In Raon's room, he and Resentment and eyes on the system's notification page, have achieved conditions, rage very satisfied with your reaction, quickly +1 point, Raon with a depressed expression looking at the Resentment is angrily screaming, what is this, you have received points because you have pleased the quintessence of the star, this system is crazy, Raon said frustrated, you create out of it, why don't you know? Resentment faced Raon growl up, of course, I tried one system with someone else, this was because you stole it from the quintessence of the Emperor. Raon bent down and said, Resentment angrily screamed, the name was ungrateful. After saying that, he stood up and took the cup to drink water, Resentment next to him with his face was not very happy, so he cried out, yeah. Resentment said, I have suggestions for you, Raon replied, suggested. Raon looked at the Resentment and continued to wait for the answer, Resentment, you bet with the quintessence of the Emperor, if you win, I will give you the parameters, if you lose you must admit my wrath. The system of the system appears, Ron drinks water and views the notice, the wrath offer the betting with you, the conditions, passing the test for the official student, reaching the first class if successful, the whole information +2 and receiving any attribute, if they are defeated, create 10 indignation emotions. Raon just looked at the system of the system while talking to Resentment, you mean that you are the first class in the official student competition that Rimmer mentioned, Resentment, right, he said it would be first class, the result was clear. That 10. Raon continued, any attribute is what, just said he looked at the system window. Resentment, one of the attributes of the quintessence will be bestowed to you, of course the level will be lowered down for an ordinary person like you. So one more question, the case of creating 10 emotional indignation points, if the failure is, Raon asks for resentment. Resentment, the idea is on the face, you will receive the feeling of indignation that the quintessence emperor owns. Resentment, looking at Ram, smiled cunningly said, the feeling of wrath that the quintessence of the emperor gave you nothing, but if you keep the wrath of the quintessence contact. Thinking about the scene of Raon lost control of emotions, resentment became more and more happy to respond, no matter how strong your will. Raon looked at resentment, his emotionless face told himself that it was his intention. While drinking water, just glancing at resentment, Raon thought, looking at the way he behaved like a person who kept the word he did not think he lied, he even answered very much. Raon thinks, compared to the other reward, the risk of failure is quite small, perhaps this is a poisonous apple that I have to eat, with sick people like me, it is difficult to achieve the valedictorian, but I am a person revival. Raon raised his hand forward to respond, the thing was not bad, it was okay to accept. Resentment smiled monster, eyes glowing very well. Ram's palm emitted a strange blue light, of the system showing the notice, you accepted the betting with wrath, Raon thought, if I took advantage of the experience from my previous life, I would never lose where. The sun was high, fiercely shining on the practicing yard of the students, the sun was so big that there was no cloud of clouds. There was a classmate who was lying on the ground and gasped after the training session. Besides, there were 2 or 3 people who were resting like him, the lament sounded continuously, my legs were about to explode, no longer standing up anymore, in the morning, I was running blood and now like this. They recalled the evil smile of the teacher Rimmer, the voice of the teacher still echoed in their heads, they were doing as a standing posture, even if it was just a horse riding posture, but don't look at it lightly. This is the most basic posture in that martial arts, everyone has to practice, keep that position until the teacher told me to stop, the teacher went to bed, the thought of being continued. Well, of course, it is not required, so the teacher repeats it, the children to rest, not the teacher, the voice of the teacher rang in their heads. Someone's screams cut off the lines of the friends, it was hard to do it again, when we could learn the sword, a friend advised, left, now just ran and stood standing ton. Burin spoke up, urging them to get up, then don't complain anymore, the basic training is over, go to practice, because we only learn the basic exercises of your sword. That warn, said then the people they left. Resentment and Raon looked at them with their backs left, the sound of resentment rang out, they went away. They are going to practice swordplay that you don't follow, Raon does not seem to pay much attention. Raon said, we do not need to go now, with this shabby skill and go to practice swordsmanship just wasted time. Raon thought, what I needed now is not a sword. It is the foundation of the current physical strength because of the curse that his physical strength compared to others is much weaker, Raon thinks. Raon is doing push-up movements, he seems to have tried his best, 2 teeth bite tightly, sweat falls. So now I have to gather the lawsuit to rinse my body more than anything else, Raon both pushed and tried myself. At a far corner, behind the cabinet, there is a shadow of Cross, peering up to follow up. She is the races of the Runnan-Sullian family, looking at Raon who is practicing, she thought that it was Raon Ziegert. Runnan couldn't help but coal, he progressed quickly, his weight was worse than yesterday, I definitely heard that he was sick. But day by day, the weight he lifted was also heavier, obviously having to practice hard to raise weights heavier, Runnan's face seriously again. Looking at Roan as raising weights easily, Runnan feels more and more wonderful, but every day is so intense, it is so ridiculous, how to raise 10 kilograms of weight in a week. Perhaps because he was different, why was a patient so persistent, Runnan couldn't help but wonder in his heart. She walked to the place he was practicing, thinking in his mind, Raon Ziegert. Seeing that Raon was wrapped in the hands, the more Runnan felt, this guy certainly had something shady. Raon looked up at Runnan in front of him, could not help but ask, Runnan-Sullian. Why rely on here, Ron said. Raon looked up and said, Runnan-Sullian. Why are you here, Raon asked. The two of them raised their faces, facing each other, the silent atmosphere covered for a moment. Raon quietly told himself, what happened to the development of this child? Runnan suddenly froze, surprised by Raon's question. Runnan looked at Raon's handsome face, his heartbeat seemed to be stopped, Runnan's face was bewildered, his hands clenched together. She stared at Raon in front of her, her eyes widened, it seemed that all the intentions in her head were forgotten. She went to the empty chair next to Raon and sat down, it seemed that Raon was quite surprised with this action of her. The two of them sat next to each other without anyone speaking. Raon looked at Runan with a curious face to see what she wanted to do. Suddenly Runan lifted the dumbbell, making Raon feel quite unexpected, standing for 5 seconds. Raon stood up and left. Runan also followed like a tail. Raon went to the small weightlifting area. Runan also followed. She glanced at Raon's heart. Runan suddenly awakened to realize, indeed. While practicing, she thought, was the smell before. After the refreshing scent from Raon before, after smelling that smell, my body was softer. Runan felt like I was discovering something unexpected. It was clearly shown on the face of my face. Mississippi. Thanks to it, I could lift the weight heavier than the previous lane. She unconsciously raised her hand and thoughtfully thought. The Raon sounded to wake her back to reality. This. Raon said, "What do you want to say to me or anything?" Runan responded unconsciously. Raon walked with great doubt. Runan felt so hurriedly stood up. She looked at the shadow of Raon thinking, Raon Rigert, I will need to follow you a little more. Since then Raon practiced what Runan followed later. He practiced his hand. Runan also practiced. Buran and his classmates came from to see the scene before his eyes. The atmosphere was silent, stressed as if something was so shocked. Raon turned his face to see Buran seemed not too busy at him. Buran's friends constantly pumped him with an angry tone, but responded was just silence. One said, "Why did Runan follow that guy? His cheeks went out with the kicked kid. From the mainstream lineage like it has something good." Buran gripped it tightly into the wooden stick. So useless, just repeat the health exercise is not helpful at all. He thought, basically Raon lacked strength so he needed those simple practice exercises, but no matter how much he tried, he did not affect us. I don't know what the test content is, but at least, like preparing for that day, Buran said. Looking at the wooden stick in hand, Buran continued, if just to develop his own martial arts, it would be quite stable when continuing to practice the sword. One of Buran's friends looked around with an angry face. His hand gripped his fist tightly. Buran said, "Let's go, no need to pay attention to that collateral." After saying that, Buran and his friends turned away from the gym in the house. The Buran's voice rang, "The result will say everything on the day of checking." The leaf falls on the surface of the water, breaking the silence of the surrounding scenery. It seems that Raon's life will face more fluctuations here. In the gym of the blue-haired friend, the Raon stopped practicing, directed his eyes towards him in front of him. "Hello, I'm Dorian, I can practice with you guys," the blue-haired friend continues. Dorian raised his hand to touch his chest, smiled friendly and continued, "I wanted to learn the appropriate exercise." Raon looked up at the face that was not hot, not cold. "Rub, I didn't pay much attention." "Thank you, so even though this is not much," Dorian said as he touched his hand in the pocket to find something. Raon and Runan both looked up with a curious face. Dorian raised the Raon face biscuits, "But eat this, it's delicious." Raon's face is quite contemplative, hesitant. It seems that this is the first time he has received the cake from strangers. Raon looked at the piece of cake holding, "I'm okay, so I get it back." Suddenly something attracts Raon's uncle. It was Runan. It seems that the biscuits in her hand attracted her. Raon feels quite surprised by this expression of Runan. She has never shown that face like that. The beautiful face with sparkling, glowing eyes of Runan made him super heart. All words seemed to be swallowed in his heart. Not knowing what to do, Raon's face seemed quite helpless. He gave his bread to Runan. Sitting beside Runan was eating a piece of cookies with a happy face. Raon was depressed, now more strangers beside him. From then on, Raon had another tale. When Raon was instructing Dorian to raise the weight, Runan beside him, researching. In the early morning, the warm rays of sunshine have just reached out, the early mist particles have not yet melted. A new day began. Raon started to turn the calendar to the new day, followed by that. You and your friends run to train endurance. After that, they went to the training room to practice. The three of them always stick together as the picture with the shadow. Their feelings were one more step forward, no longer as far as the first day. Elsewhere, when the sun was rising, the rays of the sun crept through the red maple foliage. The soft breeze swinged the leaves to fall into the lake. There were someone's shoes placed next to it, appearing. The smeared scratches due to practice. It was Buran's shoes. He was still hard working, enthusiastic to practice wood, although under the hot weather, he sweated continuously. It has also been 6 months since the beginning of practice. Raon's eyes seemed to be more sharp, steadfastly at it apart. He spent every day with the intention of pushing life to the boundary between life and death, by pushing his endurance up to the limit by running. With his loss, he realized, the back of the road barrier in his first training days, no longer seeing. While running, he tried to exhale to the end of the trot. Although the back of the road has overcome almost all, but for Raon still has a big obstacle. Only 2 people in front of them are Burn and Runnin. To overcome these 2 people to win the Raon championship needs to be needed. Try harder. And then the last time is past, the clear blue sky, the warm sunshine, interwoven the clouds creates a beautiful scene. And in the morning, the inspection has come, a crowded, busy atmosphere is taking place, everyone from all over the academy, they happily laugh to each other. In the middle of the vast square, the notice rang, "Thank you for coming here." The guardians of the contestants this time, follow the instruction line and move in the order, the notice echoing throughout the square. Under our square, Raon and Kue Ling are having a small story before the inspection starts. Oan Ling said, "Raon Ziegert, don't know if you still remember the bets with the quintessence of the Emperor." Looking at Raon, a dangerous smile said, "In the end, you still could not overcome those 2, so I was ready to accept the wrath of the escape of the Emperor." Raon just waved his hand and pushed the resentment away and said, "Rub, the whole test was different so I did not know anything, I walked away." Raon and Runnin are walking together, seeing what Dorian is doing on the ground. Raon asked curiously, "More importantly, this Dorian, what are you doing under it?" Dorian shiver, "No, just, I'm a bit too much stress because today is the day of check, ha, just exhale, then I can also be thin viscosity." Raon felt surprised, he seemed to be acted by Dorian's words, seeing him abnormally said, "Raon. I took this biscuit." Runnin raised the biscuits in front of Raon. Raon waved his hand, "I was not okay." Burn seemed to pay special attention to Raon's group, he went in front but still did not forget to glance at Raon. Remembering the friends around me, Raon was depressed, why there were many people like them near. On the far side of Sylvia and Helen are extremely happy to look forward to the exam of Raon. Sylvia said, Helen looked over there. Our Raon is confident and standing there. Sylvia laughed happily. Helen replied, "Of course, he had suffered hard for 6 months." Looking towards the distant Raon, Sylvia said, "It seems that Chungsta's Ram of Chungsta also has friends." Helen continues, "With Raon's personality is also common sense." Recalling the old memories, Helen lamented the owner Raon never once lamented because he was young and still understood the story. Sylvia beside a slight smile on the lips, proud of Ron. Suddenly there was a voice, making friends and all, I was proud of him. This voice cut off the story of Helen and Sylvia, they pay attention to the place of that voice. A tall body, handsome face, full of authority to step forward. Below the surrounding sound, the patriarch was coming in, the patriarch personally came here to see. The cold, serious face of the patriarch of Glen Ziegert stepped through everyone, he aims to the location for himself. When everyone is conducting a greeting rule with the patriarch, there is still a whisper somewhere, not before he never personally came to see stars. Mr. Rimmer smiled on each, his face suddenly smiled and said, "What was the head of the clan coming here?" Glenn responded seriously, "It was an event that would direct the future for the clan. You react as if this was the place where I should not go, not equal." Rimmer shyly scratched his neck, "Ha, of course not, welcome him." He turned his face towards the square of the voice, "Because the patriarch would be here, we will not be around, we will start the memory to start the official trainee selection test, so, sparse gentlemen and ladies, all the criteria that people Ziegert are quite curious will now be revealed." Rimmer's eyes seriously captured the smiley tone. From the teacher of the teacher emit an invisible source of power, light blue light, shining around. That light makes all students feel surprised, everyone has a bad premonition about this light. Our Raon also felt that, he raised his hand to shield the light in front of him, his expression. The Rimmer's voice rang out, "Through my pressure, that is the test today." Mr. Rimmer stood on his podium, spread his arms, radiating his strength. He smiled and said, "The simple pressure is something that cannot be separated from the life of a warrior, this test will evaluate the level of that possibility." A parent stood up and discontented, "Waited a little bit," I protested, "still not long for the children to learn aura, why did she check the pressure so soon?" Besides everyone, in fact, there are children who have not learned aura anymore, a simple pressure test is too much, that is not to mention the words of a 1A few kids, that all you do in the period is sleeping, what is this test? Mr. Rimmer looked at them, helplessly sighed. Rimmer explained, "The pressure is not simply a mana application, the pressure is really the level of spiritual energy that a warrior has built through their achievements." He continued to say, "It was a testament to a warrior that could be shown level without aura. A parent spoke out. You were talking, Glenn's voice ranged, surprising him. He said not wrong. A person who can only really comprehend pressure through the way he has lived and practiced, the Glenn said. The other parent seemed surprised at the answer of Glenn. He faltered, the Lord mine. Mr. Rimmer smiled slightly at the patriarch. The voice of Lord Glenn continues, even a person who does not own aura can own a great pressure depending on the perseverance that he practiced. Rimmer happily said, indeed, it was his Lord, he really understands everything. After saying that, he turned his face, facing the children, spreading his hands wide, happy to say, that's the case. I am sure that no one here has any idea with the test, right? So, please ignore the disruptive and start the test immediately. Runnan, please step forward, the rest back, Rimmer said. When Runnan was in front of him, Mr. Rimmer spoke up, now Runnan Sullivan. Looking towards Runnan, Mr. Rimmer said, the pressure we are about to release will be a level that you can overcome if you have shown my best in the training. If you can overcome the pressure and touch in me, you will pass. With a smile on his lips, Mr. Rimmer began to extract the pressure. The test will start now. The teacher's voice is also the time when his eyes are serious. A strong blue light emitted, the distance between Runnan and the Rimmer is pushed away. Linking this pressure, like a whirlwind, blowing Runnan's silver hair, she made a slight moan. Runnan's hands brought up the shoulder. Mr. Rimmer continued to laugh. I would slip immediately if you use aura to re-sign to this pressure. I want you to have to go through this test with the will that you have created through the training period so far. Runnan hard to endure, his eyes closed tightly, his hands were put upwards. She walked gradually slowly, firmly moving forward. Runnan's hand held up the front, behind it was the dim image of Mr. Rimmer inside the blinding blue light. When touching his arm to Mr. Rimmer's hands, all the pressure disappeared, the atmosphere returned at the beginning. Mr. Rimmer raised his hand to rub Runnan's head, seemingly encouraging her to pass the test. One hand raised his Runnan arm, one hand rubbed Runnan, Rimmer said, overcoming easily. Looking at Runnan's breathing down, Rimmer spoke up, I could see the sweet fruit from her hard work, I wanted her to continue to step forward with that will. The next time is Dorian, Mr. Rimmer continues to call the name, Dorian Run is afraid of stuttering, who, she is, what kind of ranking like this, Mr. Rimmer said, how I like to arrange it, I will arrange it, so on should lift the buttocks and come here. Dorian stood up and walked in fear, sweat fell continuously, he walked through Runnan, who had just done the test. Facing the fear of Dorian, Mr. Rimmer said, I saw what Runnan did before you, right, I want you to use the will of my will I have built through the training period to overcome the wall the pressure I created. Dorian's voice trembled, I thought I could do it really, I was quite scandalous because I didn't have any power of my will. Mr. Rimmer created the wall pressure and smiled, then, if you didn't have it, I would simply fail, simply. Dorian is against the pressure ahead, he sat down completely, reaching out to the front shielding, inching every step. In the eyes of Dorian's examination, Roan thought, unknown emotions. Looking forward, Roan crossed his arms thinking, the level of pressure that he liberated will be adjusted depending on the object. He is adjusting the pressure based on the level of the children and how much they practiced, so he really observed each person in detail. Rimmer, he called the teacher in a state of failure. 2. The voice of Rimmer rang out of Roan's thoughts. See, all I need to do is come here, I pass Dorian. Mr. Rimmer bowed, smiled, looked at the scene of Dorian trembling and hugging his feet. Rimmer continued, however, I still there is a lack of confidence with my own skills, I advise you to be high and opposite from now on. Dorian Duong seemed to have not overcome the shock, vomiting of green honey, yellow honey at the feet of the teacher. The voice of the Rimmer rang, well, I think you hear that is enough. The voice of the Rimmer continued to resound, okay then the next person. The time rushed quickly, the sky was clear, the sun was high, the sun reached the top of the head. The sunlight is intense, the rays of the sun creeping to the gaps of the wall, illuminating the lake's surface. Next, Buren Ziegert, Mr. Rimmer ho, Buren replied, yes. Buren raised his head and faced Rimmer, he said, starting right away and always. His sharp gaze appeared, recovering smiles, Mr. Rimmer began to give up the power. A very powerful walled wall spread out, causing Buren to feel uncomfortable and covered with his arms, and the Rimmer seriously checked. Buren bit his teeth, uncomfortable, he wanted to go to him while suffering this thing. Buren spread his legs wide, thinking, it was completely different from what he saw outside, how Runnan could overcome this thing like this. That pressure caused Buren to kneel on one foot on the ground, he bit his teeth, whispered, I could not get a step at all. Seeing Buren easily collapsed in front of Mr. Rimmer said, surely I have a completely superior talent compared to others. The number of people who can confront me among the 160 students here can only be counted on the fingers. However, Rimmer ends the words. Pausing a little, Rimmer continued, I, as well as other students listening to me, wasted my time. What the swordsmanship means when that person lacks goals, but the children should have done, not to practice their swordsmanship, but to train the body and the will. I always only rely on aura when everything becomes difficult. If I use it now, I will slip immediately. My voice resounds seems to have awakened the strength in Burren. He clenched his teeth to his teeth. I could not fail. He remembered the old memory, told himself, no life he could forget then, at the time when his father refused his brother in. Burren continued to think, I could forget his cold eyes. If I could not overcome this, I would be thrown away. After saying that, he reached out his hands, stood up, tried his best to move forward. Burren turned forward, his shoes collided with the ground rang. Mr. Rimmer smiled and looked at Burren, touching his hand and touching him. I was parked. You are just a 12-year-old kid. I want you to stop showing the adults to go and practice according to the density suitable for my age, Mr. Rimmer said. Mr. Rimmer looked towards Burren in front of him, smiled and commented, if the only thing I did was looking forward, I would not be able to pay attention to the sharp thorns piercing through my feet. Rimmer glanced at the Raon sect. Now. Finally, Raon Ziegert, Mr. Rimmer said, it seems that special people often erred at the last moments. Raon moved forward to the face without showing emotions. Yes, yes. Raon stepped down to Mr. Rimmer. There were whispering sounds when he came to his competition. Rimmer looked at Rom happily joking. I was the last one, which one to prepare? Raon raised his face to look at Rimmer, of course. Then we start. After the voice of the Rimmer, a very powerful wall spread around the teacher. The distance between the teacher Rimmer and Raon seems to be extremely far away, it seems to be extremely big. This wall is extremely powerful, the strength of Mr. Tan makes everyone surprised. Before the Raon test, Sylvia panically called his name. The King of Glen also feels quite surprised, frustrated, thought, what the stress of the hell is that, huh? Opposite Rimmer, Raon stood firmly, slightly afraid of response. Here, really my test. Mr. Rimmer smiled loudly, I didn't know any more, but the talent I saw in her was definitely on Runnin' and Burn already. Try to take this thing. Mr. Rimmer laughed louder than continue. Raon covered his light with his hand, seemed to be thinking about something, the sound. He thought, the level is not what is contained in the body but it is in the category of the soul. I also have a level from life when I was an assassin, but Raon's reflection continued. Then he stepped up, past the barrier in front of him. Rimmer's face was shocked, he was quite surprised, exclaimed in his mind that he could overcome this pressure. The King of Glen also felt quite surprised, his face down, his eyebrows furrowed tightly. Raon's arms raised in front. At this time Mr. Rimmer exclaimed, how could I be? In my mind Rimmer thought, this was so ridiculous, right now, this is. Something should have surpassed the framework of the impossible. At the same time Raon used force to touch the abdomen of Mr. Rimmer, making him unsteady, cut off the flow of thought. Everyone on the radio cannot believe in what they see today. Around quietly, no one emits a voice. The faces of Rimmer and the King Glen are also hard, not believing in what happened. Rimmer smiled and said, the test is ended yet. Under the surprised eyes of everyone. The Lord still cannot believe in his eyes. Mr. Rimmer did not expect a disabled name without aura to pass the test. He called Rom and asked, what are you? Raon said that the teacher had observed for 6 months and I was Raon. The teacher replied that the teacher asked so because I did better than what the past 6 months of teaching. I have created pressure too much of my ability but unexpectedly, I can penetrate it. Raon looked at the teacher. The teacher suddenly startled and said. The teacher quickly relieved the atmosphere. He laughed and said it seemed that the chief of the master made the teacher distracted and Raon Ziegert was the last contestant of the official student selection session. Burren Ziegert was worried when the teacher said we would announce the top practitioners. The Lord also could not help but stress when the teacher said the top trainer of the 5th training school. All eyes poured back to Roan when the teacher said he was the top student. Runnin burst into tears and told the servant that our Roan was first. The servant was also in tears when Roan did. People stirred up and could not believe how Raon Ziegert was the first-class student. Some asked the young master Burren but why he could overcome it. Burren shouted and told me that I didn't accept it. This was not right, teacher was lying. The teacher asked again what lie. Burren pressing about the strength and talent Rom are both inferior to me, I do not accept the person like him reaches the first division. Burren could not suppress his emotions, but it was clear that he played the game, obviously he played the game. But the surrounding people looked at each other and said that what Buren said was reasonable. But the gossip gradually stirred up that the star's tape was still at the top, heard that he didn't even have aura, or he bribed the teacher. It seems that people gradually believe in rumors with Mr. Rimmer, and for accepting bribes is right. Buren continued to tell Mr. Rimmer that we were all warriors of the Ziegert clan instead of such a competition. I think we should let the fighting play to decide who passes it, sir. Mr. Rimmer smiled. The teacher told Buren that you crave the position of the leading student so much, Buren Ziegert? Buren suddenly panicked and stuttered. Then Mr. Rimmer announced that it was unfortunate that the test was over. What did the head of the clan he think we should do? The chief responded to the words of Mr. Rimmer, Raon Ziegert. Others did not seem to accept this result. If I wanted to fight with Buren. Buren smiled and glanced at Raon. Raon calmly said no, sir. He said that the test ended and the results were already there. What had to fight with him without gaining any benefits? Raon turned to look at Buren, saying that he was always the mainstream of the honor with the honor. I didn't think he would lose this pathetic way again. Buren gritted his teeth and said, the bastard. The Lord continued to say that, do that, fight for the leading student position if the child will win me to give the copper card. Raon was surprised to think about the copper card. Regarding the yellow card, the family card will be bestowed depending on the achievements of each person. Each card is commensurate with a different reward, including just a copper card, but the card is directly offered by the patriarch. That what I will earn from. He thought it seemed that the patriarch was unhappy when he achieved the first place, then Raon told the head of the son. The patriarch immediately said that we started. Raon and Buren glanced at each other when listening to the speaker. This time will decide the best students. The rule of the competition is that this is a match for a couple of half, who uses Oru or the weapon will be eliminated only to be allowed to use the body. Mr. Rimmer has declared it. Mr. Rimmer waved his hand and started. Buren quickly moved to attack. Raon quickly leaned to the perfect shot of Buren. Buren continued to put his legs to attack. Raon immediately stopped his stone with Buren's stone. Buren took his fist towards Raon and shouted, this is a tiger that my father has personally taught. There is no rule that banned the use of magic, so this is not a violation of the law. Buren attacked all the way. Everyone stood out and excitedly said that the young master Buren was different, that Raon was unable. Buren angrily attacked himself with the thought of a weaker person in us of the eagle lineage. Buren continues to attack and frustrated in himself dare to target my first-class student position. Buren thought about the past with the words that Ziegert did not need weak people. Buren was always taught with the words that did not disappoint the father. Buren attacked himself as he was looking at him, he had to prove himself. Buren put all his strength so he could not be able to redundant such a person. Raon has always been defensive but brushed the overwhelming attack of Buren. Raon saw something past. That you can see it. Raon saw from the fist to the rhythm of Buren. Everything is clear before the eyes of Raon. Buren rushed to scream the person who gave in to Raon Ziegert, I will finish you with this blow. Both are thrown in the direction of each other. Raon responded to what Buren said, how to surrender. Raon's fist over. Both hands punched together strongly. Buren could not withstand Raon's attacks, so he fell off. Buren slipped out and didn't believe his eyes. Raon redundant advanced to attack. Buren was beaten by Raon. Buren is very confused. Everyone around him was very surprised and unbelievable in his eyes. It was the right to be a tiger. The patriarch of the P-Glutras does not believe. Buren failed to knee on the ground and could not believe it, but said, why did you know the tiger? Raon looked down at Buren on the ground and said, you showed me. Raon calmly said, I just imitated your magical rites. The students were surprised to each other, he had just used it, that's shameless, this was so unreasonable, how could he use the right to use the right? A male student asked to ask you, or because it was secretly passed down to him, if not. This is impossible. The male protagonist is cold and cold. The male lead's opponent was kneeling down on his feet. The red-haired guy felt horrified to cover his mouth and thought, this boy was really talented. The red-haired boy recalled just now and thought, this kid could have no vortex of the right to create a opposition. Just reading the opponent's martial arts direction is enough for people to call a genius. But it can turn that direction into a skill of its own. The red-haired guy is still shocked, in his mind, this is the type of talent that can stand at the peak of this continent, this is what Ziegert is looking for. A natural talent. I think this match is over, as everyone has seen, the result is quite clear. The red-haired boy declared, the winner was Raon Ziegert. With this, today the test came to an end. After the statement of the red-haired boy, a blonde woman rushed up. The blonde woman towards the south. The woman hugged the male lead. The male lead shows the happy and happy. The woman hugged the male lead along with tears filled with joy and happiness, along with the fire of the ghost thought, we were hungry and then went home quickly. At the same time, the family of white-haired boy also brought a happy mood with the happy tears of the father hugging the child and the affectionate eyes of the mother. However, the situation of the boy who lost blue hair was not so good because of the wound. The butler had to help him. The blue-haired boy suddenly panicked when he saw something. A blond man looked straight at the blue-haired boy and turned away with his cold eyes. The face of the blue-haired boy. He dully looked at the shadow of the blond man. The darkness covers the sky. A house appears. The dimly shining candle light in the room. A blond man sitting on a chair was turning back to the blue-haired guy. On the face of the blue-haired boy showed fear. The blond man said, "Buren." The green-haired boy quickly responded, "Yes, his father." He said, "Do you remember the words you told me?" The blue-haired boy told him to return to the title of the top rookie and advised to never lose to anyone. "It is not so much. I told you to defeat the Sullian wench family and after stepping on Raon, return to the top title." The man irritated and spoke harshly, "Forgot about wench's home, lost the trash that was thrown away from that tone. You are trying to turn me into a joke or anything. Or do I want my fate to be the same as my two brother?" The blue-haired guy replied panic, "Not." He said again, "I broke all my first household muscles and then they will choose the head of the class after giving the student score at the end of the graduation. Make sure I give that position to us." After telling the man to say, "Go," the blue-haired boy replied, "Yes." The blue-haired boy walked and thought of his father's words earlier, if he wanted to live under Siegert's family, don't fail in this final chance. He angrily held his hand and punched the wall and said, "Damn. All at that cursed bastard. It is unbelievable that all of this happened by the ROM trash." He walked and walked to himself, "So damn it was like this. I will definitely practice harder to never lose once again." The man helplessly hugged his face. The eyes filled with killing intent of the blue-haired boy. The boy's footsteps suddenly stopped in front of a building. He said himself, "Why did he come here?" He thought, "I went to this place unconsciously when I was thinking." The boy opened the door and entered. He looked at the room and thought, no one was here because the test had just ended. His hand took the dumbbell and lifted it. Suddenly he saw something. A closet appears before the eyes. The top cabinet contains the Raon name appears. He stepped with his intention to open. The door of the cabinet opened. "If you look in a little, it will be okay, right? It was not that I was stealing anything, I just looked." He suddenly surprised. Questions, "What is this shoe like this?" He thought, even just counting them briefly, he saw that there were more than 10 pairs of him going all here in just 6 months. "I just had to change shoes twice." Something sounded, he turned his head to look. A silhouette of the blond boy sitting lifting weights on the chair appeared. The sweat rolled on his face. Suddenly he remembered, and then reminded him to always practice. While I am ignoring the basic and swinging swords to dread with others. Or when I was comfortable to rest in my room. Although he exudes what is the elite of the Siegert family. I went to do things that were completely opposite. After thinking about the boy suddenly looked out. The chair is now empty. 2 dumbbells are located on the floor. His hand holds deep shoes. He put his shoes back in the closet. Close the closet. He walked away and told himself, "So damn it was like this. I will definitely practice harder to never lose once again." The blue-haired boy looked up to the sky. The steadfast gaze seemed to be determined to do something. In Raon's room, the quintessence of the Emperor could not help but be annoyed. "Oh my God, unbelievable, I have been living for hundreds of years, but never met anyone like you." He glared at Raon. "What was you?" Raon was indifferent to anyone who knows, he likes to think. He looked at the table in front of his eyes. "First let me know what this abnormal is," the quintessence of the Emperor answered. "The intuition of the snow flowers, you receive too good energy compared to your mediocre. This power is likely to increase your awareness range, now just 1 star will increase about 10% more." He was satisfied, the quintessence of our Emperor was also 10 times more aware of the original. Raon was surprised, so it was so good. He asked, "But why was it the name of the consciousness of the snow flowers? If you like it, you will not sound good." Made him annoyed. "Ha, who could say that sentence?" Talking to her mother, Raon heard the call, the patriarch, and calling him the young master. Sylvia was worried, his grandfather summoned what Raon did wrong. The housekeeper reassured her, "Ha ha, lady, don't worry. The patriarch just wants to personally give the bronze card to the young master. Raon knelt in front of the patriarch, joined the chief of the clan. He admitted that, although he did not like it, he would still keep his promise. The butler next to him immediately heard the command, "Yes, the chief." The butler follows the order to step down to Rom. He heard the patriarch's voice, "Raon Ziegert, as promised I would be bestowed on a copper order. Later, when returning it, the child will receive an object or a good privilege." He observed the command in hand. "So I have a request now." Sylvia Ziegert, the name was said to surprise the patriarch. "What do I have to do to regain my mother's position?" He was astonished at this question. "Initially, I mean the position of her in the direct lineage." Yes, Rom wondered about the thought of the patriarch. It seemed that suddenly he was down again. Achievements, if achieved achievements that the whole family recognizes, it is likely, but it is not so simple. Get the recognition of others as hard as picking stars in the sky, almost impossible, especially with a kid like children. This word of the patriarch makes Raon think for a while. He answered with a confident smile, but he said there was nothing. He resumed the copper command on the butler tray to surprise him, "So thank you for the answer of the patriarch. Then leave." Suddenly Raon was blocked by calling, "Drilling." The patriarch continued to say, "I still haven't asked about my reward, it is just a question that doesn't need an order, I can still let my child answer." Raon could not help but be surprised, unexpectedly heard these words from the king destroyed the north. He ordered me, "Tell your wish." Raon gripped his hand, "So there was something I used to think about, I need it the most." He answered, "I want to have a cultivation technique." The patriarch responds, "That the coach will teach me when starting the basic training process." Raon put his hand on his chest, "I need a better spiritual cultivation technique than what is learned in the basic training process, please give me carefully to the same command." The technique of cultivating the shadow of his previous life is not enough. To restore the position of Sylvia and Darius's slice, I have a stronger aura than that. So what I want is the technique of cultivation right. The patriarch flicked. A new door opened in front of Rom. He was surprised at the huge bookstore. "This is..." The patriarch explained, "One of the bookshelves of the Ziegert family. If you put your hand on the center of the book I need to appear immediately." "I understand." He secretly prayed that Gotcha would be a super VIP pro item, just something better than the technique of cultivating the spirit atmosphere, hoping that there would be useful things to appear. A book appears in front of Rom. He frowned, "What is this old book?" The patriarch seemed to be amazed at this. The butler also could not keep calm. The patriarch said, "What is this? Why do you get that book?" Raon stared at the book. "Van Hoa cultivated." Raon touched the book. "What kind of technique this is?" It suddenly moved continuously. The pages suddenly flew out. Raon. The head of the clan witnessed the scene in front of his eyes, could not help but think, "I thought Sylvia was estranged by people in the clan." He recalls the past, "Not that we need to know, the prosperity of the nation is the first priority at this time. Sylvia was designed with another man and left home, don't report those trivial things to me." After the days of thinking of the family and brushing the affection aside, "We have built an army that can cross the fierce Fund wall. Our family is growing stronger." So what did we lose? That was one day he heard the news, "Sir, the news that his son-in-law and his niece were attacked. The attacker seems to be the devil that Eden that Lady Sylvia has investigated. The lady seems to be okay but the other two died on the spot, because the attack was so unexpected so I couldn't." Pitiful. Finally we have feelings again. But things can't come back as before, so Raon, even though we have children and Sylvia hate this time. I have to protect you. Raon now regained his composure, he looked down at his hand, what was this? His body and mind were pushed with them. "Raon Ziegert," the patriarch rang out. "What did you do just now?" "I don't know, I just remember the practice of the Dharma disappear in my hand." He continued to ask, "What is the name of the book?" "As a thousands of fire cultivation, thousands of fire cultivated you to face the eternal flame that you remember all the thousands of fire cultivation." The patriarch continued to ask him, "I said that I was new to the star." Raon admitted, "Yes. It seems that he has received the answer he wants, I understand, that's okay." He ordered, "I received a reward for the copper command, now I go home." After Raon left, at this time the housekeeper came back to confirm, whether the young master Raon received was, not to let him finish the sentence, the head of the clan admitted, "Right." It is the first monk of the first clan. In the history of the Ziegert clan, no one can take out and read that cultivation. Unexpectedly he learned thousands of fire. The butler is worried. If this is revealed, the young Raon and the young lady Sylvia may be in danger. The chief reassured, you don't have to worry, no one knows about everything. The practice is gone, what to do now? It's okay, it has been passed on to others. The head of the clan stands in front of the giant library. Anyway, no one has learned thousands of fire. If not transmitted to the boy, then it will be one tomorrow. I have a hunch. The future will have a new breeze. On the side of Raon, he returned to the room with the quintessence of the Emperor, thinking that this was so bizarre. Why did he give himself this? Not to mention the gambling order, even the needle is not enough to change. Take this technique. This thing is not inferior to the whole fire, it is necessary to learn it properly. However, when he closed his eyes, he always saw a stream of spirit in front of his eyes. No matter how many times it tries to touch it. Raon admitted, I failed again. Although I have tried many times, it is difficult to accumulate aura. I also do not expect to be able to study this high level, but the quintessence of the Emperor felt so teased, it seemed that you were having difficulty. Pay all your energy, you must be careful if you are cultivating and being touched by others, the big trouble. Raon looked at the fireball, what was this guy who was planning? But he had to admit, rage said right. Thousands of fire too, absorbing the energy of nature and accumulating spiritual energy in the mind of energy. If we are interrupted at an important time, the mana circuit or the energy center can be inserted and I can becoming a disabled person. It is even more dangerous for me. Yeah, if you already know that, then don't interfere. The quintessence of the Emperor smile, I don't know what will happen. Raon seemed to understand something. Wait, don't tell. He smiled even more, only once, let the quintessence of my Emperor interrupt you, exactly once when you cultivate. Raon sweated coldly, you have to use a disabled body, it is not happy, right? The quintessence of the Emperor does not care about his answer, it's okay. You are a person, so I can't overcome it, but even your limbs are broken. Or the energy mind is exploded. When you are disabled and give up everything, it is the best chance of my quintessence. I did not expect to meet the risk, I understood, you said only once doing yet, right? I am looking forward. The quintessence of the Emperor flies around, you explode again, tremble every day, because you don't know when the quintessence of my Emperor attack. Raon looked at the fireball flying in front of him, this guy is really enemy. He is a demon from the ghost of his own wounds when he has the opportunity, and he is the embodiment of the wrath. I thought he was so quiet that he gave up that intention and then he had to be wary of him, he sighed, and then left later, we need to solve more important things than before. The quintessence of the Emperor calculated, you finally plan to resolve her. Raon went towards the window, yeah, could not be accidental, she came here every night. I have to handle her only, he thought, for a long time not doing the old job. On the river bank, the servant of the Judeel building is doing something shady. I have nothing to indicate unless he is muttering alone, but this time I have something to report it already. Unexpectedly, he could receive such a high-level monk with the same order command. She kept watching Raon for many days, and the mana flow was extremely intense while he cultivated the spirit, so unimaginable. This is an important information for Trung Vo Kung, Judeel quickly wrote letters. Because I was a command, I had to do it, but he was just a child, not knowing how long I was still through his eyes. Looking at the letter of rolling water, Judeel decided it was time to come back. Now come back. But a blade was placed on her neck. If I dare to open my mouth, I will kill you. If you dare to move, you will die. That guy continued to order, lower his eyes and look down at the lake. Judeel followed, worried about who he was. Who can radiate the killing intent like this? She could not help but be amazed at the shadow reflected in the river, Raon Ziegert. Why can this kid watch me? He spoke, since returning to this sub-building, I have felt your examination, how did you get any news? Judeel was terrified, he couldn't know it. I thought I didn't leave any trace, so he just pretended not to see it, why? The blade held tightly, Raon ordered, opened his mouth. A tablet was then tucked into her mouth. Done, he picked up the piece of Judeel paper just written. Raon returned to ask, we could not read the content of this letter, this paper needs to have a new way to read it correctly. He muttered, water, earth, fire. Wind, moonlight, sunlight. Moonlight, after listening to this words, Judeel was even more terrible. Why do you know? Raon did not answer, continued to list a series of names, Ares Jiegert, Caron Ziegert denier. After observing Judil's expression, he guessed, so the command of Caron Ziega. Judil went from surprise to surprise, did not know how. My expression had no mistake at all. I spent many years of training to become a crystal spy. Just read my expression, not can he read that? I couldn't wait, the pain was writhing in his body, he could easily read his thoughts anymore. She suddenly understood, there was only one way to explain this, what he stuffed in his throat. Perhaps it is crazy. Earlier, Caron ordered Judil, penetrated into the auxiliary building, and sent us all information about Raon and Sylvia. If I perform this task well, I will give you a measure. It seems that there is a contract between them. Judil worriedly asked Ron, did you give me a crazy food? He was surprised, oh, she knew all the crazy. The story you know about the fantasy, surprised me. After listening to the answer, Judil's nausea came. By putting it into the body of the target, the poisonous people can identify not only the position but also their thoughts. The fierce is that in the most terrifying curse in this world, the lower one's poison can kill the target whenever they want, with a pain to the end. She is almost sure, that expression has no doubt, exactly as crazy. You sent this letter to Caron Ziegert, so you must be a spy Votam to send, and this task must have started 7 months ago, after the judgment ceremony. You have investigated it carefully. Not only my mother, Helen, and all the other maids. Judil was terrified of these words of Raon. I thought this was a simple task. Just collect information about the disabled Raon and Sylvia, we think we can complete the task easily. But there is a monster living in this auxiliary building. She begged, I will change the content, I will report false information. But Raon thinks differently, leaving, if you change information, Caron will still know about me. He walked towards Judil, it only made him realize your poorness. He said with dangerous eyes, from now on, you will be spying too. You will report to him any information that he soon discovered, hidden important information and not revealed to anyone. On the contrary, you must bring me precious information. Price from his side, heard that, Judil hurriedly agreed, I would do according to him. After saying that, he left, next time meeting again. We hope to be able to receive benefits. On the way home, the quintessence of the Emperor wondered, why did you summon so much? But it turned out that Raon did not use that object. I did not want to use that disgusting thing. I gave her a poison pellet, causing her temporarily painful pain. The quintessence of the Emperor was suddenly, waiting for you to read her thoughts. Raon did not deny, you could rely on some factors to detect others could not see, but I then yes. This statement has made the elite of the Emperor realize, this is the true demon. Later, while Raon was still passionate about training, the day he returned to the training school also came. During that time, despite constantly trying. On the day of departure, he still could not create aura. At the training school, Raon realized that 42 people passed the exam, only 1/4 of the original number. Rimmer is very serious about the results. Suddenly he heard the call from afar. When I came back, I saw her friend Runnin. 2 people face each other. A few days ago at the mansion of the Sullian family, Runnin was asked, so the young master Raon helped our daughter to practice. She admitted, yes, yes. Her mother laughed, did you say hello and say, thank you, when he gave me snacks? Her mother continued to ask, what about when he helped me practice? The girl honestly answered, no, surprising the mother, why? Father told me not to talk to my son first. After hearing the answer from you, my mother Runnin black face, aha, I know. Runnin, when expressing gratitude, gender is not important. If you have received help, you must always respect and grateful to them, which is the usual politeness. Her mother told me, remember, don't forget it. That is why she came to see Ron to say, thank you, thank you. This made him a little bit, oh yeah. The elite at the side did not understand the end of the story. Why did she naturally say, thank you? And even the Raon owner has not finished downloading. I don't know, but why I know. While Runnin was feeling achievements for saying, thanks, another person came to find Raon, young Raon. He lamented, the young master, how he was, and I thought that I would die. When I was just a temporary student I felt like I wanted to die. So I cannot imagine now that I have become an official student will be even more difficult. I keep encountering those dreams. Last night I kept sleeping forever, just sleeping, just afraid that I couldn't do it. But by the way, really, the words that flowed out like water from one ear to the other of Rona, made the quintessence of the Emperor also have to exclude, you said so much. But I am very happy that the young Raon is the leading student there. If the young Buren is the leader, then me. Before he could finish the sentence, he was startled because the person behind him was Burden. Burden stood facing Ron. It seemed that the eyes never ended. Burden said, "I'm sorry. I admit my failure last week, let everyone see their embarrassing appearance. However, I won't give up. No matter how much I am, I blatantly stood in front of you. I will not withdraw, nor give up," say, and then he turns away. Raon stood behind her exclamation. Unexpectedly, a 13-year-old child who admitted his mistake. It was true that the big family was raised by a big family. Meanwhile, the quintessence of the Emperor is very aggressive, has been beaten for a battle and still does not know his body. "Hurry up and hook his eyes," Raon hurriedly stopped him. "That's good, that is good, you calm down." He continued to scream, "Whoever craved it, now, there is Rumber's reputation, sorry for coming late." He scratched his head to go, and he overslept because the day before, he missed some wine. "They have been kind, rest already." Standing in front of the students, Rumber spoke up. First, he congratulated the children who became the official student. "We will start the official training from today onwards. Overall, it will still be the same as before. From now on there will be a few more training programs, additional. The first day we will learn about the method of cultivation of spiritual energy." Not to finish the sentence, the entrance was kicked out by a black-haired girl. She screamed, her mother, the door was opened, almost had trouble. A practitioner could not help but be terrified. That person must be, while Rumber seemed to have been waiting for her for a long time. "I finally came, please pay attention, I am not the person in charge of instructing her, but she is. It was the student who failed from the previous batch. Because from now on people will practice together, so please send greetings." The girl introduces, "I'm Martha Ziegert." Rumber introduced, "It looked like that, but she was a very kind girl." After that Martha stopped her throat. "First of all, who is the leading student? It is not easy for people to stand lower than that. I have to see which bastard is holding that position. Come here, fight a match." Martha loudly challenged, "Why not hit a battle? This makes Ron feel extremely troublesome. Feng Shui has a problem. Why do we have to stick to people like this?" However, he still spoke, "I was Raon Ziegert, I am the first-class student." Martha looked at the person standing in front of him. "You don't look like a first-class student at all, that's okay. Not much to say, making a match is knowing." Unexpectedly, Burden spoke up, "Martha Ziegert, why was she so rude?" This made her uncomfortable. This kid was so rude to his seniors. She warned loudly, if he even said such stupid things, he would die immediately. It was better for the next time he would select the language before speaking carefully. Burden naturally did not give up. Raon Ziegert was recognized as the first student in front of the Lord and the coaches. "What do you mean, are you suspicious of their decision?" Martha questioned, "I thought that because of that, you also made a fuss, that's not it." "So I did that," Burden answered. "I don't want to have to look back at that shameful appearance." Raon stood behind thinking. Burren changed. Runnan suddenly ran out in front of Ram. She raised her hand to protect him. "Away." Martha feels this is ridiculous, or true. It is true that beautiful friendship, torn cheeks wrapped in ragged leaves. She turned to leave. "If I continue to do so, I will be wrong, that's all, I will be so bad. But you know I hate the cowardly hiding behind others, they are catastrophic to take the complacent name." In the end Martha still could not help but rush in. Burren and Runnan could not react. On the marked aside, she raised her fist towards Raon. Unexpectedly, he just gently dodged aside. If she had not yet finished her soul, one of his punches rushed. The bash pushed the two of them away. Burren surprised, while the professor only smiled. After the soul, Martha got angry. Really ridiculous. The soil under her feet was crumbled. It seems that she has not planned to stop the battle here, don't think it's done. But the professor has stopped, that's enough. Martha was surprised, when he was here. Rummer knew what she was thinking. Martha seemed to be too disdain for him. "Go down to the teacher, so I do not behave as if the teacher is invisible." Burren and Runnan probably have learned aura, but Raon has not. I don't think the victory with that advantage is not happy at all. "I will let me fight Ram comfortable after the boy learned the spirit." Martha threw his hand. "I am also going to use my hand." The professor told Ron, "Go back to my position, Raon." Although not attacked, the quintessence of the Emperor could not help but pressing. "What are you doing? How dare you let your child attack me? You have to tear the limbs and imprison her in the ice in the new year, right? Raon replied, I had already paid it. It seemed that it was not enough for the fireball. How could you be able to find her head from her body? He refused. No, now it is not the time when. It seems Raon has his own plan, fighting when he wants to get something better from her, leading her by this first-class student name. He said to the quintessence of the Emperor, just wait, next time I will show you good play. After a training, the students were reclaimed, gained and then all 10 minutes off. Buran looked down at his hand, as he guessed, not easy at all, he had learned the high level of 2 stars on me. Different. Then he looked at Raon, but Raon, even though it has only been started for a month. Even it took me a month to learn the shaped punch, he only learned the sword French at the same time with me. Looking towards Martha, yet it seems that not only me is under pressure by his progress. He spoke, she was also catching up. Damn it, she swore. She could not help pressure before the first place, Raon Ziegert, even though this was the first time he studied magic, how could he progress so quickly? It doesn't look like he learned before like Buran or Runnin. One of his body was not normal because those still had an inner tape, how could he practice all day with that body? Martha is mad, cannot be lagged like this. The talent is very formidable, it is what people say about her. Since being adopted by Ziegert, Martha has always been a hunter. I surpassed all the direct and the eagles, the names are nothing like all the time shouting at me as a genius and that. Then sarcasm when they are desperate. I am a genius, I am the best, that was my being. But now I am very worried I can't control it anymore. The butler welcomed her back, today she showed good performance, Lady Martha. She just nodded in agreement and quickly walked over. No worries, lady, this word made Martha startled. She questioned, what did he say? The butler repeated, as I said, because he showed his good face so people had forgotten, but the young Raon would not have the door to defeat the person where there was a minimum letters. She was skeptical, he would never beat me. He base on where to say that. The butler immediately revealed, because the young Raon, there was a critical weakness that he could not overcome. The practitioners wanted to ask Raon a little bit, I wanted to ask him this, he looked through his posture. No, I can't ask, but his sword play is so good, but it seems that they are too shy to do that. Martha applauded, great. I did not expect that in such a short time, you were able to practice with me, you are better than geniuses, study so fast. But his mana touch capacity is so weak, it is useless to practice, so unfortunately. Perhaps at least you can become a swordsman. Everyone around us has no reaction. She thought, no one said anything, just like I thought. Nobody thinks that this idiot has not been proficient in aura, after all 4 months. The night before, the housekeeper was the one who revealed this, without the owner of Ram without any talent aura at all, She probably did not know because this happened after she was adopted, but at the evaluation ceremony, the mana touch of the Raon owner, at the lowest level. The only person who has not learned aura in the 5th gathering hall is the lack of owner Raon. The bronze medal will only help the day to have a medium or a little better training method, just better of everyone a little bit. But that day was not proficient in any method, so the results of the evaluation ceremony were right. This made Martha excited. The butler continued to say, he could be the best sword play and fighting, but if he could not use aura, it is impossible to become a real martial art. She turned away, I still had the loss of that name. But that guy was not worthy to be bothered, thinking. Martha was startled because Runnin had standing there ever since. Martha spoke, what to say to me? Runnin just spoke, left, causing Martha to laugh, aha, that's all. Runnin became more resolute, going, Martha had no reason to stay, laugh, I went here. I also have to attend the main line of the main line. After practicing, Ram worshipped, today it must be enough. He felt quite satisfied with the results of training. On the battlefield I did not learn martial arts, but a way of survival and killing, only my assassination skills were improved, I could not learn something else. Raon felt that this was more fun than I thought, I did not expect it to be so happy, when I learned martial arts to develop myself like this. Where did the elite from flying, screaming, people who calculated it yet, could not believe that when he was humiliated, he stood still like that, Raon asked again, humiliating. The quintessence of the Emperor was angry, the small black hair she kept saying badly on you, it seemed that Raon did not pay attention to this, well, so, I did not listen, I focused too much. This even made the quintessence more upset, you must pay more attention, if she said I was like that, I would have closed her into the ice. Raon stopped. I already said, now fighting with her nor do it benefit at all. Although there is no universal cultivation, we can easily defeat her, are about to leave. Raon met Runan right in front of the door. He asked, why are you standing here? She gave Ram a cake, eat. He wondered what this was, so cold, what this is. Seeing Runan seem resolute, Ron had to agree, okay. As an assassin, I could not eat but other people gave it too. Surely he will not poison himself. The cake is more delicious than he thought, the quintessence of the soul. What is this? In the ghost we have never tasted anything sweet, it is still cold, what is this? Runan spoke, what did he feel? The quintessence of the Emperor wavered around Raon. More, I wanted to eat again, he praised, delicious. Runan answered that the ice cream. Then turned to leave so Raon did not understand what was going on. Hey, the quintessence of the Emperor still wanted to eat more, take me one more and then go away. In the end, she still left without turning back, making the quintessence of the Emperor not feel strange and a little regretful. She was strange, why not give me one more, Raon thought, he worried about himself. Runan likes sweets like children, it seems that there are only 4 capsules. It seems that he returned to himself, he probably struggled psychologically. He sighed, but I'm okay. They returned to the room, probably had to repay him later, while the quintessence of the Emperor was still attached to the candy, so asked her to ask for another one. Raon has just announced, I came back, the butler was exclaimed, so long ago how long it was a day, there was only a week, the day was hungry, I did something for him to eat right here, even though he was over. The strength of refusal, no me, but it seems that it doesn't stop them quickly. Judy is taking him a report I sent to the Intermediate Martial Arts Hall. Raon asked again, what did they say? She answered, nothing much. They have ordered me to investigate a little more, because the speed of progress of swordsmanship and his fighting skills is too fast, but it seems that they are not interested anymore because he cannot use aura. Raon did not forget to ask her mother, what about mother? I think they are less interested in Lady Sylvia, Judy answered. Just like this, they will withdraw me soon. Raon feels uncomfortable, no then I still have a place to use her. Raon trembled and asked, lacking owner. He deliberately didn't study aura. Raon answered, who knows? He asked the opposite, what did you think? Judy couldn't help but be afraid, nothing, I apologized for asking the question like that. Seeing nothing left, Raon allowed her to go out, okay, she went out, yes. The quintessence of the besides complaining, but they think that you intentionally not learn, he answered, taking advantage of the situation and the environment for the benefit of himself is very intelligent thing. The ball of the fire continues to complain, why is it hard for you to practice aura? I have never been, but Raon himself doesn't know why, I don't know, then go to practice. This surprised the quintessence of the Emperor, again, this name goes to bed, but its words cannot stop Raon, to practice to be new. As soon as he opened the door, he was surprised at the outside. It was Coach Limer, I can't sleep. Raon asked, why did the teacher here? The coach immediately replied, the teacher came to teach me. Then put his hand on his shoulder. I will tell me my attribute. Limer goes ahead of the student, I think you will teach me about the attribute or something, why are we going to this walk now? He answered, don't complain anymore, just wait, the teacher is a bit lazy but is an excellent teacher. Raon continued, the teacher was going to teach him about the mana attribute in this place like this. Limer felt that he still could not forget his first training. Like a hot fire like Nam Thatch. Completely different from normal training. She tried to adapt to the body's coldness, along with the fire instead of removing them from the mana circuit. If Ram can really master this carefully. That must be great. This must be enough, he spoke. Raon is skeptical, in the middle of the forest, why is it here? A breeze emerged at Limer's orders. He wants to create a wind blade to protect his lord. What I am seeing now is the wind he chose. Limer continued to say, the teacher really made it weak for me to get used to it, but I was not afraid at all, I was not childish. Since I was born, I felt this wind because I was an ELF but I was a human, and my mana circuit was filled with cold air, so it would be harder for me. There are many types of wind, warm, or sharp. I want a wind blade to go through everything. And he got it. I have to find my things. Think of the fire I want to have. Raon answered, but this was the north, unless I launched this forest, it was impossible to see the fire properly. Limer laughed, If so, we will be beheaded immediately. But there is a place that is very suitable for me. Then Limer led Raon to a forged kiln. Hey, old man came here, the blacksmith responded. I didn't even know why the fire was witnessed, so he was you. Limer seems close to this person. It seems that tonight failed again. Raon looked around, where we were. Limer answered, this is the place with the hottest and brightest fire in the north. A coal forging kiln. The blacksmith asked Limer, what did you bring this time? He answered, hey, it was the owner of the owner. The old man lamented, I was just a retired old man, unless the owner came here, while Raon was very surprised, why? This is really fire. In my previous life I saw countless flames. The fire of his own fire, the high level of fire magic created by the magician, and yes. But these flames. Image temperature, fire. The image of the fire you want to get. As soon as I touched, the blacksmith reduced fire, he reduced the fire. He introduced, my name Valian. And voiced warning him, if you want to be polite, you can go elsewhere. This name surprised Ron Valken. Artisans are famous all over the world for her skills, really Valken. The person who created the heavenly sword of Glenn Sieghart, but he had disappeared 30 years ago, but he was here. Raon also quickly introduced, very happy to see my grandfather Raon Sieghart. Vok asked Limer, he told him about me, he shook his head to refuse, not. Limer introduced to Raon, that old man was the artist off Sieghart, he retired. Yes, the artist has retired, but he has been looking for fire here for 10 years. He looks like this fire all year, so that the children must not have a proper fire in any other place. Limer opened his mouth, thanks, he could help me with something. The old man spoke up, why didn't you go to those blacksmiths? He confessed that, there were too many eyes and ears, I did not want to let others see this carefully before she was proficient. Vok asked again, what do you mean? Because Raon was Sylvia's son, Limer answered. This caused the blacksmith to look back at Rom. Raon spoke, I won't bother you, please let me feel this fire. Valcha answered, I was doing coal. Yellow charcoal, creating stronger fire than white or black coal, I have done it 10 years here. If you don't bother me, if you want to do whatever you want. Raon became happy. Thank you, sir. Limer and Vaka went out to talk, really kind even though I did not expect him to easily accept it. He also promises, if I treat it well, I will bring good wine to him. Vok answered, not because of you. He explained that the fire in the burning furnace, so when the child entered, so strong that he broke the coal below. That child has the ability to control the fire. If it's Raon. Vok thought that he could make his dream a reality. During the 7 months back to the forged kiln, Raon thought about the image of the fire he wanted to have. The fire, I understood. It is said that the fire is the feared and strongest element, but if it can be controlled completely, it is another story, a fire that has been tamed stronger than any elemental element. And the thousands of fire has also been awakened. He recalled Limer's words, imagine the image of the fire you want to get. Images of the fire you need. Pasting Daruth's throat. Help Sylvia get the main line title. The path to his goal is only no darkness, every step of lighting the road to defeat the monsters. A persistent fire. That is the fire. But I want to have. A stronger power than usual is flowing through his body. The temperature of this furnace space is absorbed into the flesh, I have to focus and catch it, feel a little more. This is a completely indefinitely state of why I can see my own subconscious right before my eyes. If I focus a little more. Our turn, the sound of the essence of the truth cut across the thinking circuit of Rom. Not to say so why we will wait until the weakest person, freeze. I'm so subjective, why should I be at this time? I forgot that he was very quiet recently, but he was not his ally. A devil wants to take his life. Lucifer. Damn it, it feels like my body is breaking into pieces, it is too difficult to breathe, but if I am moving now, I will die, but if I stop the fire, I will die. Raon sweats, I have to focus on my aura. In order to live, I have to brainstorm me to think, but the price is weak, but my mind is so sleepy. The quintessence of the emperor laughed maliciously, how beautiful the struggle of the person. Do you think you can endure my power like before? Useless. The body and the soul of the person are now mine. The effort of his life is useless, you are no different from the name working in that furnace at all, but don't worry. I will definitely revenge for you, Raon awakened, furnace. Thanks for suggesting, can eat all about no, if I do nothing, I will die. Instead of absorbing natural mana heated by the furnace, I will directly absorb mana from the furnace. A stronger and hotter fire can swallow everything. Absorb it. What are you doing? Try. The blacksmith was startled. He wondered, what was this? Why did the fire naturally rise? I never saw this strong fire like this. How is the furnace? He looked towards Raon Zegert. However, only he saw him trembling up. The furnace was like that, how could it be cold? Vok stepped closer. Hey, you, are you okay? Why are you trembling like a civet, saying something? Limer suddenly appeared. He stopped Valka. Ignore her, don't touch. Vala lost his temper. What did he say? He might die, but Limer asserted, now she is in a completely indefinitely state, we cannot do anything. If we touch her, she will vomit blood. Vaka couldn't help but worry. It was a bit of cold that he said, we couldn't do anything. Limer answered, not too dangerous. I can only pray, Raon, please don't die. At this time, the quintessence is shouting loudly, who stopped right away, you can't do anything. Nonsense, I am dead once already. My previous life is very meaningless that we still die in the end, we will definitely not repeat that. The temperature of the oven increases, making Vaka worried, the temperature is too high like this, it will burn. It could not withstand such leap temperature. Limer realized, mana in the furnace was gathering in one place, Raon, M. Absorbing mana star. On this side, Raon and the quintessence of the Emperor are having a fierce match, causing an explosion. Limer panicked, I was okay, answered the teacher while the blacksmith could not help but worry. From the fire, Raon stood up in the surprise of Limer. Kim Hoa. Raon looks at the words you have read Van Tu carefully. The consecutive lines that appeared on Van Tu carefully had 2 stars thanks to the high temperature, the fire was created after the level up, the icy curse was melted with the durable attribute that disappeared, cold air gathered aura welding again. Raon looked at the flower in his hand. The notice board continued to have 2 stars, thanks to the cold rage. Raon put his hand on his chest to smile, everything better than he thought, I can develop immediately. Raon was surprised to look at the notice board that he did not expect to achieve so much, Raon with astonished eyes, this set is a dream, it's all for me, just for a while, I have all my things to achieve already. The quintessence of the Emperor frowned and said. It doesn't resign to screaming you, what is your spirit always weak? Raon glanced at the quintessence of the Emperor when he heard it said, how could you endure? Raon is full of confidence that we say it is not possible to not misunderstand that. Raon thought back to what was silently exclaimed, but this time it was true that I almost died, I had to be more careful after this case was sure. The expression of the quintessence of the Emperor is a bit more indignant, but wrath is still an enemy, I cannot let him see his weakness or secret. Raon just woke up, Mr. Valken immediately asked if he was okay. Raon responded, I'm fine, Mr. Valken asked you to have aura already. Raon with a calm face is right, thanks to him. Raon looks back at the oven and said, I'm sorry. Mr. Valken breathed a sigh of relief, he was okay. Mr. Valken is saying that I can build another furnace. Suddenly something. What did Raon ask? Mr. Valken went to the furnace. Then Mr. Valken used a shovel to dig under Raon's curiosity. Mr. Valken scooped up 3 pieces of coal. This is a golden coal, Mr. Valken thinks. Mr. Valken thought back to the talks about himself, but everyone said that he would come to the lung again, and then he said he wanted to create a golden coal and for many years and then coal in the legend. Mr. Valken has always been to the furnace often, even if others have said anything to retire, but probably boring. Mr. Valken was full of surprises. 3 Han then said it seemed that he was not the only luck. He gave the shovel containing coal to see and tell him this is a golden coal. Mr. Valken explained more to Raon, coal with stronger than white coal and longer than black coal, thanks to him, I had created what I tried to create a decade of, thank you. Raon waved my hand to say what I did. Where? Valken's face is pensive. Vaon stood at him saying that every time he practiced here, the fire would burn strongly and his breathing made the fire burn more, the temperature from there spread everywhere. Valken continued, I was just a rough, only working with a hammer but still knew what he did, thanks to him, so I wanted to ask him what was your goal. Raon, the goal is. Raon, repeat the goal. Raon stood in the darkness of the past. Yes, what kind of swordsman did? Then Raon asserted that I wanted to become a swordsman, never giving up no matter how faced with the opponent. Mr. Valken happily responded to him and did not expect a child to say such a thing. A swordsman never gave up. The two of them looked at each other. Mr. Valken said in 3 to 5 years, he would try to have a sword, and when he thought he had a strong mind, then come to me, I will save them for that day. Raon grabbed his hands and could not help but be surprised to ask Mr. Valken that he would practice his sword. I heard that he retired. Mr. Valken said that people finished retiring or returned very much. Raon left Mr. Valken to wave to him and silently should try until that time. One appeared on the mountain overlooking Raon, and Mr. Valken said goodbye. That person is the teacher Rimmer. He stood there and said that there was something about something. He finally had aura. Mr. Rimmer is both happy and right, making people really worried. Mr. Rimmer tilted his head back and asked me, right? The patriarch stood solemnly listening to the Rimmer teacher asking the owner. Mr. Rimmer laughed loudly every day coming here because he was worried about him, but now he must be very afraid of relief. The patriarch rejected my teacher's words without coming here because of anxiety. Mr. Rimmer continues to talk to the patriarch because the temperature from the furnace and the purity of aura are extremely high. The boy has stabilized aura, really talented. The head of the clan frowned and said no. Mr. Rimmer was difficult to understand. The patriarch of Raon is going below, saying it has turned his defect into an advantage. Runan stopped when going through the 5th training hall. Her face was full of anxiety when he came back. Runan thought of the talks of other students that he did not hear about Rom. He hadn't created aura anymore 7 months, maybe he was not as good as rumored, young master or lady. Martha should take his position. Runan stood there, full of depression. She thought she wanted to help him. She said she had to repay those who helped me. Runan raised his head in surprise. She saw Raon coming from the door. Raon told the quintessence of the Emperor, I said not to try, it said not to be upset one day. Raon looked at Runan in surprise. Raon walked towards Runan. Runan looked up at him. Runan opened the cake box I took out and told Ron to fight. Raon was suddenly shocked by Rom's actions. Raon picked up a cake and said the cream last time, thank you. Runan thought this cold air was much stronger and more comfortable. Runan looked at Raon. The quintessence of the Emperor looked at Ron to eat the cake so delicious. The quintessence of the Emperor happily said it for a long time, but it was still the same as the other two left. Raon around to look, you probably know that this is his food, don't be so greedy to rectify yourself. Raon put his hand on the cake box, thank you very well. Runan asked you not to eat any more. Ron said I ate one, thank you. Runan holding the cake box asking Raon, did you feel good? Raon sighed and said that I was better. Runan smiled at him. Then Runan turned to leave. Raon watched Runan laughed as a strange girl. At this time, Mr. Rimmer is standing in front of the students who claim that they all day only practice so boring, so this month he prepared a more special thing. They have trained the platform and cultivated for 7 months. Then it is time for you to start the energy. 2 practitioners stood under each other. Why did he naturally do that? I also wondered. Mr. Rimmer smiled. Martha is interested in the Rimmer slot, says they will play with each other within a month. Mr. Rimmer continues to talk about playing. The results of those matches will affect their graduation ranking. When Mr. Rimmer is telling the teacher to advise them to prepare for the upcoming month, suddenly a banged arm said. It was Martha. She said that the people who were falling still hadn't created aura. Everyone poured their eyes towards Martha. Mr. Rimmer happily responded to the teacher who heard those children have already created aura. Martha was stunned again and said. Martha glanced at Raon. Mr. Rimmer said it was probably yesterday or today, was not sure. Martha stared at Raon, saying I finally had the opportunity, I thought I would be bored to die. Martha walked back to Raon and said he remembered what I said, but I did not listen to the weaker of me. Close to Raon suddenly Martha said loudly that I had suffered from you enough, so I am sure that you are so hard. Martha continued to say I would have this opportunity and solve him. Buren reached out to stop Martha. Buren said Marth's Sieghart backed away. Martha grimaced when listening to Buren saying that he hadn't had aura around one more day. She had any honorable swordsman. Martha went to pat Buren's shoulder and said that lack of our Buren owner who grew up like that, it must be very important for honor. Honor is something for those who deserve it. Buren angrily called Martha. Martha recently went to say that the fools also learned aura in just 1 month, but our top students took up to 6 months. Other practitioners began to stir up and talk. Even if they were highly skilled, the average takes about 7 months, mean that this idiot is very incompetent. A swordsman who has not learned aura cannot be famous no matter how good he is downloaded to the sword, but if he doesn't use aura, it is useless. Martha looked at the Rimmer teacher, who asked the teacher to think of this couple's hand because he wanted to change the top student. Teacher Rimmer replied to the teacher, who did not know. Martha approached Raon's face, saying that he was the leader for so long, until you backed up. Martha against us on the hips and saying, so as I said, fight with each other to select the head. Martha was shocked to hear Raon bluntly say no. Raon looked at her, saying that there was no money to gamble, but if she wanted to bet on my first position, she had to give something the same thing. Martha laughed. He still didn't understand his position. Why no one here is on your side? She was scared. Raon smiled slightly. What did Martha asked what he just said. Martha hugged his stomach and laughed and said, so funny. Martha straight, and I can say it, I miss you, you want me to give something. Martha talked about something with Raon. This is the natural disaster of my father who gave me, it will strengthen my body and aura. Martha held the medicine box in front of Raon and said that if he won, I would give you this, it would not be bad, right? Raon said to the quintessence of the Emperor, remember when I said that I should wait until the trial of Martha? The quintessence of the Emperor appeared to ask what you said. Raon replied that I had something to get from Martha. The quintessence of the Emperor saw Raon and he confidently said this was our opportunity. A month passed. Martha, see, the calendar has marked a month. Martha was full of excitement. Finally I had the opportunity to revenge. Martha thought of the battle with Raon before coming here. I have never been beaten by the same person. Martha is determined that this is an opportunity to take revenge on the humiliation he caused himself 8 months ago. Martha walked and thought that the bastard had just learned aura for a month. He could not win the person who had trained for 3 years like me. Martha always reminded himself that he had to become stronger because he needed to save someone. Martha said this was the end of Ram Sieghart. He shouted, clearly all attention. The happy face, Mr. Rimmer, observed the match, had the same effect as participating in the exercise. You should watch carefully the match of other students and think about your country. Many practitioners are tense. Mr. Rimmer reassured not to worry. Mr. Rimmer said the first match between Buren Sieghart and Dorian, Buren yes. Doria was scared to raise his trembling hand to say, Teacher. Teacher Rimmer looked out and asked. The exhausted face of Doria said he surrendered. Buren confuses to look at Doria. Mr. Rimmer said we haven't started yet. Doria hurriedly grimaced and hugged my stomach and said that I was not healthy yesterday, so I was still chill with pain and pain all over my body and I could not sleep again. It's really true, teacher. The quintessence of the Emperor said that if he was my subordinates, I would have a beheaded on the spot. Raon looked at Doria in response to the quintessence of the Emperor. I saw that he would do that. Mr. Rimmer moved to Doria when he was bent down and said he should try to fight with Buren. He will definitely learn something even if he lost to the game. Roria frustratedly said that I understand. Buren quickly defeated Doria when the match begins. Doria was defeated on the ground and said I surrendered. Mr. Rimmer came to Buren's side, saying that I still could not control my emotions, that if I was fighting kindly, I had defeated him in 5 moves. Buren turned away and said that I was involuntarily angry. His attitude was his attitude. Mr. Rimmer reflected about Doria, that why I kept running away. I told you to do it, but if I hit it, I had lasted longer. Doria was still motionless and said I apologized but scary. Mr. Rimmer continued the match then followed. The next pair is Runnan and Crane. Crane immediately took the sword towards Runnan. Runnan calmly faced Crane. Crane's face was surprised when Runnan countered himself. Crane is difficult to understand with what is happening. When Crane's sword slipped off the hand, the Rimmer teacher was enough. Mr. Rimmer seriously reminded Crane I was too nervous, I need to relax when holding the sword, and Runnan has a beautiful counterattack but Aura still cannot stand until the end of the game. The contest continues to take place. Everyone is attentively watching the last pair because they are the last people, so they should fight. In the pitch of a male and a female who is fighting very well. That is Martha. And Raon. Martha swung the sword in front of Raon. Raon steadily supported Martha's shot. 2 people continue to fight fiercely. Martha was stunned when he could not help Raon's attack. Raon swung the sword through Martha back. Martha did not expect it to be like that. Martha raised his head to say unexpectedly he could help all my attacks. I had to admit that you were talented. Martha continued to speak but his talent was limited to the sword French. Martha suddenly smiled, a half-hearted warrior that was not good at using aura as he would never shine. Martha raised the sword. She put force down her leg to prepare to attack. Martha jumped up with the sword in a slashing position. The sword plunged down according to Martha's attack force. Raon raised the sword to stop the attack of Martha. Raon wrinkled her face with trying to stop. Martha's face was filled with the chalk. She said he could help this, but he was like this. Martha attacked Raon, constantly talented to use aura, extremely important, even more than swordsmanship. After 7 months his abnormal power only created a small aura like the bean, so he did not have the door to become a swordsman at anywhere. Martha said, even if I won't surrender, the next blow I will smash your bones. Raon destroyed Martha's attack. Raon Thu said she always reminded her talent and her family to value their talent was a bit too much. Martha looked at him and said he would be troublesome because he did not have talent, so I wanted to show him the more talented people who could do. Martha stood still when Raon said, if so, I would show you the opposite. The flames emerged around Raon's sword. He said talent was not the most important thing. Martha raised his eyes surprised, huh? Raon is a technical technique. Martha stared at the fire that said delicious fire. Martha thought that it was so dangerous, not normal fire had something hidden behind those lights. Martha's gaze still looks at the fire but exclaimed why it was so beautiful. Martha stood silent and worried. Martha grabbed his sword with his hand. Martha said that I must be serious, then Martha raised the sword to the ultimate scoring shape. Raon looked down at Martha's sword thinking that the ultimate point was when we accumulated aura at a single point. At this age she had used it and impressed that I guess she was going to put effort into the next blow. Martha resolutely saw Raon say I admit that he was very strong but he couldn't help this technique. The two of them advanced to attack at the same time. The yellow flame of the thousands of 222 and the brown color of the ultimate point shaped at each other. The practitioners outside everyone were surprised to say that the ground was cracked. What's wrong? Dust smoke flies all over the ground. Martha's sword was broken in half. Martha fell to the ground with half a broken sword. Raon stood in his sleeve, everyone around him was noisy to lose his aura again. Raon looked at Martha lying motionless on the ground and said that even though she was unconscious she still gripped her fist. She was even more amazing than her skill or talent. That is her mental power. Night falls on the mansion. Mr. Rimmer stood under the patriarch and asked that Raon defeated Martha. Mr. Rimmer responded rightly, so he defeated Martha completely even though Martha practiced aura before 4 years. It was unbelievable. The patriarch said that the fire we saw that the day was really beautiful as a flower made from the fire, so the power beyond its size. I am sure everyone in the clan already knows this and please show it. Take the boy not to let it become higher. Mr. Rimmer laughed comfortably and said of course. The patriarch asked about Martha, but why was Martha? Mr. Rimmer said she was a bit shocked but the wound was easy to heal. Martha sat in bed and he said that the biggest problem was psychological shock. Raon is planting pink flowers. The quintessence of the emperor is angry that you can be a little more careful, not I froze you. Raon turned to see what you could do, don't have an empty box, the quintessence is loud because of your anagen ability. Raon thought back the evening after I defeated Martha, the miraculous pills I received sharply. The information board at that time was the 4th fire that was formed. The 4-level fire was strengthening the body and the soul of agile strength and endurance that increased, decreasing physically has disappeared down the mana induction has disappeared. Lost. Raon thoughtfully thought more accurately, what he had achieved so far to promote the effect thanks to this pill, a lot of things that have been enhanced but the most prominent thing is resistance to grade 4 water. The notice of the word resistant to level 4, Raon told himself that so that the new Martha's attacks were not for me. Raon continues to puff the flower because today is the last holiday, so I want to go to the garden for a bit. The quintessence of the emperor once again shouted at the stupid, you had to dig deep down again and didn't have to do that, what did you do? Raon tiredly thought why you do it and also have to hear this guy so much. The quintessence of the emperor Raon said you had to use your hands to not break the roots. Raon wondered why he knew so much about the garden. The quintessence of the emperor said that when we were still in the ghost, we always filled the garden with flowers and flowers. The evil ghosts saw our glasses respectfully. Raon scratched their heads indifferently yes. Raon dumbfounded people who saw Martha standing there looking at him. Martha still stood looking silently. Raon opened his words before she wouldn't come to cause something. What did you come here to do? When Martha kept silent, Raon thought what she was thinking about, but she thought she was so mature but now she is really childish now that it doesn't matter. Martha suddenly spoke up, I wanted to fight again with Raon Zieghart. Raon turned to say truthfully she had not accepted. Martha braced, saying that I did not say that I did not accept losing, just that I did not understand why, so I came to find out. Martha was surprised when I could get me. Raon sat in that the flowering tree looked up to Martha the loser when he came to challenge the winner. Martha forced to get angry on the bullshit of fighting, why did it have to pay? Raon casually said, but to me need. Martha worriedly thought he did not want to fight anything he had to do. Martha glanced at the dust next to. Martha thinks that she should kick this flower, then she raised her leg and asked Raon. He would like the flower very unexpectedly. Raon said not really, making Martha's face difficult to understand. Raon just used flowers to grow flowers and said I didn't like flowers, I didn't understand why people like flowers anymore, I just gardened for my mother. Martha was angry and could not do anything. Then Martha turned to go home. Raon's mother came to Raon's grandmother. Raon was surprised to see her mother coming. Sylvia went to Ron and said she was wondering where. Sylvia with a face full of joy asked Ron, but it was my friend, my new friend when practicing. Martha turned to look at Raon's mother. She guessed it was Sylvia Sieghart, the woman who left the family with a man and returned to save her child, who bravely acted for her child. Sylvia pointed to Martha's hand and laughed, and black hair was sure that Martha was happy to see her. Raon held my hand to stop her mother, not her friend, so that she would handle the story here. Sylvia, hard to understand, I just wanted to say it's just a story with my friend. Sylvia quickly asked to visit Martha. She heard that she had been fighting with Raon. Was she injured? Martha was a little bewildered. I was okay. Sylvia smiled to tell the truth. Why did she be worried? Martha blushed when Sylvia touched her cheek and said she heard that Daniel brought a talented child to her grandchildren who were beautiful and lucky. Sylvia excitedly applauded Martha. But why did I come here? Martha timidly answered that I just wanted to say something with Raon. I finished talking and I went here. Sylvia grabbed Martha's hand saying that he should stay with them. She could not let her hungry Raon go home. Martha was bewildered, somehow. Martha was pulled away. She suddenly said ah. Raon and Martha sat opposite to each other at the dining table. Raon's mother happily put on food. Raon did not believe his eyes when looking at the food for Martha. He thought, what was his mother today? Sylvia was introducing to Martha that Raon liked meat soup, so she always cooked this dish. During the Sylvia meal, he continued to talk to Martha. His grandchild was 1 year older than Raon. Martha replied to him 15. Sylvia continued to have any difficulties when practicing. Martha still said that it was not really sir. Martha sits silently when Raon's mother always talks. We have a good chef, but the meat here is not as good as meat at home, so it is probably a bit long compared to the meat I often eat. Sylvia gently placed his hand on Martha's shoulder. Then she spoke softly to remind Martha to chew well. Martha thought back to her mother. She also reminded her so that chewing carefully not to have abdominal pain. Martha, when I was a child with a happy short hair, agreed with her mother. Martha thought and continued to eat. The meal ended with Martha, thank you very well. Martha bowed to Sylvia. She told her to take care of Ram. Raon puzzled behind me to ask what elite. I am sure that she came here to fight what she hit. The quintessence of the emperor, maybe so. Martha left the mansion while she thought that Raon thought she was crazy. Martha's face was pensive, but that mother's eyes were so like I could not refuse her. Martha thinks from Sylvia's face to her mother. Her hair and her voice are very different, but at that time I had a feeling like when I was with her mother. Martha thought of a meal with her mother. Things in the past continuously appeared in Martha after the mother was kidnapped by the bastard and I was raised by Daniel. I decided to never lose until I found her, and I kept my promise. That is now. But that day I lost to Ron. Sieghart adopts me for talent, but if I lose like that, I can be chased. Martha froze and thought that his father was a gentle person, but if it was just pretending, then I no longer hope to find a mother already. Martha sadly bent back to face his face as not losing. Martha just came to the door. Someone said Martha, she came back later than I thought. Martha came to ask him waiting for me. The man said I was waiting to give the letter of Mr. Daniel to her. Letters. Martha took the letter. She did not believe in asking her father to write a letter to me. The other person continued to say right after the game. The content of the letter wrote Martha to celebrate the child who lost the first match. A defeat did not make you become a loser, so don't be too bothered, but think about why you lose. That will help you progress. I also want to come to comfort you, but the task lasts longer than I estimated. I apologized for not being with you now. Martha looked closely at the father's letter. At the end of Martha's father, I was still looking for my mother. I still haven't given up. Martha left and told my father that I would remember carefully, and I was very grateful for my father. The other man bowed his head to say yes. Martha closed the door and lost miserably. Martha took the knife not because of my subjective or anything, I just lost. Martha uses my own haircut knife. Now I need to accept the loss and move forward in front of me, that I cannot humiliate my father. The hair falls to the ground. Martha is determined if I pretend that it has never happened, I will not learn anything and will be too ashamed to face my father. Martha on the table, let's start again. I will try my best to move forward, I will leave this stupid and miserable past. Martha looked into the mirror with a new short hair that would be stronger. Yesterday, the students were surprised to ask each other what was this, what was the Martha lady? Martha went to Ron and called Ron Sieghart. Then Martha said I would not excuse what I did but I would keep my promise. Ron sat in the chair looking at Martha. Martha turned to say I mean was the promise of the loser to listen to the winner, I just wanted to say that. Ron sighed unexpectedly, even though he promised, I did not expect that she would obediently accept it. Ron looked at Martha's back and left thinking that Martha would have changed in that short time, even though he was young but that virtue was very precious. Martha angrily kicked his foot towards the shout of Doria, why did he stand in front of me, so he frightened me, but it seemed like she just thought to me. The new year has come to the academy, though small but many things have changed. Ron and Martha both wore uniforms. Ron looked at Martha thinking against the thoughts of everyone Martha still following their words after the new year passed. As for Burin, Ron saw him became more calm and reliable. For Runnan, her sword became sharper than before even though her expression was still so pale. Ron holds the sword to practice, and I put my life in danger to practice has become a daily story. Two other practitioners stood looking at Ram to practice and told each other that we could not just learn that tactics and he was fluent in just half a day, he probably studied first and how could he be fluent quickly. So, Mr. Rimmer stood silently listening to the students stirring but he stood still in a place to close his eyes for a while, right, his posture was even better than him. Mr. Rimmer was extremely excited to tell the patriarch unbelievable, surely the boy used the brain to record all those images, it was a true monster there. The chief of the clan looked at the teacher who said that the house was his own but whatever, he always talking about all. The teacher Rimmer laughed happily, sir, I knew that he wanted to know about him. That. Mr. Rimmer found something unusual. Mr. Rimmer looked down at the palace, but the servant in the main building seemed very busy, what are they preparing? The chief of the clan did not prepare anything, we were only about to have guests, Mr. Rimmer was curious. The patriarch explains the Owen kingdom will come here in a few days. The kingdom Owen is one of the 6 kingdoms located in the center of the continent. One of the parties still keeps the harmonious relationship with Sieghart and rarely delivered with other parties, is the kingdom of the knight. Of swords and martial arts. Mr. Rimmer watched the patriarch wondered by the Owen kingdom who was an envoy, the patriarch of the clan to announce that the 3 prince, but the Duke of Tartan was the real representative. Mr. Rimmer asked Tartan crazy. Asian. Mr. Rimmer continued to talk to the head of the tribe waiting for the 3 prince to be still young, probably the same age as the age of Raon and Burin. The patriarch answered that we did not know any more we had never learned about him. The chief of the clan told Mr. Rimmer you should also tell the students to behave well. Mr. Rimmer did not understand the 5th practice yard anymore. The patriarch sternly said that the apprentices will escort the 3 prince and they said they want to observe how the swordsman practiced, we could not let them see the bad image of Sieghart. The Rimmer's teacher stroked his chin and thoughtfully chin of the 3 prince and the apprentices of the Raon age Owen kingdom. The teacher Rimmer laughed softly will be quite interesting. The patriarch turned to look like you were in a plot. The bewildered practitioners will we fight the apprentices of the kingdom of Owen Asia. Mr. Rimmer stood on the explanation, yes, they also heard that their envoys would come to visit, the 3 prince also came and he said he wanted to fight with the children, the students wondered but suddenly that. The practitioners looked at each other worriedly, the teacher Rimmer was so scared of them. The teacher told a swordsman to always be ready to swing the sword even if he was sleeping. Mr. Rimmer smiled and looked at his students. People continued to hear and heard that he wanted to visit the 6th yard instead of us. Why did you naturally change your mind? Rimmer previously came to tell the 3 prince, the highness we heard that he had visited the 6th episode. Looking at his expression, they must have disappointed him already. The 3 prince heard the teacher Rimmer said that if you have time, please visit the 5th yard, we will make you impress. Mr. Rimmer told the students that the children were surprised, the teacher was too sudden, met them first and then conclude that. The teacher Rimmer shouted everyone in, then the 3 prince and others entered. The swordsmen came in, they were the pride of the kingdom of Owen. The 3 prince himself introduced himself very happy to meet my name Green de Owen. Raon carefully observed the 3 prince, so he was the 3 prince of Owen kingdom he was excellent even though he was young, looking at him sometimes the strongest among those people. 3 prince entered inside. What about the teacher Rimmer smiled and asked Rami, would you be eager to fight them? Raon stood looking at the 3 prince who thought the prince in the middle of that, he could be a good opponent to practice the tactics of the water and the star of the star he had just learned. Raon told Mr. Rimmer, I don't want to fight you. Mr. Rimmer declared to the whole student, if the top student was eager, then all of them would agree and start to fight, need a total of 20 people, follow Raon and choose the people they want to fight. Mr. Rimmer suddenly added a forgotten thing. The practitioners stood under bewildered when the Rimmer said he had bet this month's salary, so they had to win. If they lost, the teacher would kill the kids. Raon stands in front of other practitioners. I say this must be enough. Raon told everyone that the knights would be facing in advance. Raon carefully reminded their hands carefully. A practitioner spoke, they were trembling. Raon continued to look outside, they seemed confident but they were the same as us, they were just the apprentices of our age and worried when they were about to fight. Other practitioners who heard Raon are still saying that we are not inferior to the kingdoms of hard work, the tears of the bridges will be effective. Raon encourages people not to worry and try their best to show them how good we are. Everyone shouted in unison. Raon continues to guide everyone. I will decide the order. Raon determined the first match was very important because it would help people to mentally, that's why he will send people to definitely victory. Raon looked at Martha, Martha will be in the first match. Raon asked Martha's opinion, could I do it? Martha waved to you, I would end very quickly. The student outside was very confused when the knight was in the opponent, waiting for him to be the same age as us. Martha looks very small compared to the boy with the opponent, others exclaimed so why are you so much, look like a genuine knight. The boy in the opponent introduced me was the gladiator in the kingdom of Owen Tarsa, her body had a very good state even though I was young, I thought we would have a good match. Martha is still standing there, the difference in size is too big even if there is a lady Martha, it must be very hard for everyone to continue talking. Martha's face is confident in the game, I will win, don't say it nonsense anymore. The three prince was surprised by the power of Martha. She is overwhelming the opponent, the swordsman of the second training area is really strong. They live with the name Zegert, and in skill, they are definitely strong enough to match the knights in this kingdom. However, the sixth training area is very disappointing, despite being well trained, but they cannot even compare the apprentices of the Robert family. But it seems that this training area also has very talented confidences. On this side, Limer is talking to the coach of the army from Orwyn. Yesterday has suddenly appeared and invited us to go to the fifth training area. Because of this, Limer answered, being trained with one of the 6 Union Knights of the Empire is a rare opportunity, we think this will be a good lesson for them. It is hard to believe that the words emanating from the person who have been called a genius swordplay. Limer saw that immediately said, we should go back to the daily behavior, want to bet a little with us, the coach of Orwyn seems unexpected, that betting is still not giving up, what do you want to bet? Limer presented, there will be 20 matches for all, and then awarded to the winner, it would not be more fun if we bet something instead of just looking at just looking. Orwyn's coach is confident, they are all trained at Orwyn, but his kids can win, it seems that you trust your apprenticeship. Limer also did not give up, but we also have our faith. This side, Martha is completely overwhelming the opponent. Her opponent also admitted this, why is she so strong? She made the end of the opponent. Winner, Martha. Raon watched the match, I pulled back the words, thought that her sword technique was more peaceful after the battle with me already. But on the contrary, the speed and power of her have increased. Martha agreed by the loss of the opponent, only dependent on the strength, but the first blow did not dare to throw their best, idiot. Raon feels, this match is interesting, while the quintessence of the boundary seems to disagree, interesting, watching the two ants fighting very interesting, boring dead far away. Raon spoke up, dogs criticized cats, making him frustrated, huffed, recalling the time when I was still in the demon world. The quintessence of the Emperor babbles, even if the younger devils are so fighting, it is much more interesting, Raon cannot stand it and then knocked on his head, losing fun too silent. The fight continues, followed. The 18th battle, Runnan and Idalia, Raon reminded her, Runnan, it's your turn, Two people are called to face each other. Idalia doesn't seem to like her opponent, she is Runnan, the absurd I really don't like it. Saying then around her radiating fierce fire. Runnan is no less competitive, I don't like fire. The surrounding air is concentrated, forming a series of cold air. Two people rushed into the match. Idalia swung the sword slashing towards the image of Runnan, there. She was surprised to see nothing in the mist, illusion. Idalia was also surprised to be more bewildered when I felt a blade on the shoulder. Outsiders declared, the 18th match, Runnan won. Idalia has no idea about the results, I lost, but the last match was very good, but it seemed like Runnan didn't even care. She walked towards Ram. Did he watch the match just now? He praised. His department has been much more progressive, very good. Runnan thanked the compliment and sat down on the ground. Thanks. Limer, after watching the happy laugh, whether winning or losing is still beautiful matches, the atmosphere has gradually become hotter. We continue with the 19th match. The next match, Burn and Siren, went forward together. Siren introduced, I am Siren Castle, an apprentice knight. On this side, Burn also introduces myself, I am Burn Zir, a trainee. Outside, Raon silently judged about the strength of the opponent Burn, this series, quite strong, except for the three prince, he was the strongest of the rest. As soon as the sound started, the two of them rushed together. The match was fierce. Burn felt, the technique of both was quite similar, so if I lowered my vigilance even for a second, it would be enough to measure the floor. And he must have had the same thought. The end of the match and swords of both were broken. The people outside witnessed not trembling, the swords of both of them were broken, then. Limer stated that the 19th match result was a draw. Raon has compliments for Burn, doing well, Burn, the other apprentice knight is the strongest person with them. But he seems not very satisfied with his results, what it means, if I have fought for the honor of Zihart, then at any cost I have to win. Raon put his hand on his shoulder, don't worry. I will win this last match. And bring glory back to Zihart's house. The three Prince Greer looked at him in front of him, I had to fight him. The martial arts I felt from him was too trivial, he spoke, the direct defender of Zigart's. Raon denied, not, this made Greer seem uncomfortable, tch, unexpectedly we had to fight a match like this. He doesn't seem to want to fight Ron, I want to fight one of those three. He told Limer, Mr. Limer, I had a proposal, Limer asked, what suggested? Greer proposed to be beaten with Runnan and Martha, I don't think those two are tired, I can fight them when he defeated him. Limer quickly agreed, well, I was okay, but he had to win, Greer was confident, told them to start, the match would end quickly. Greer defended to attack, we will not use aura to save effort. On this side, Orwin's coach is discussing with Limer, what is the monster, Limer, I would not find it anymore, he was too faint. Limer wondered, he was not very blind, if he knew why he did not warn the three prince, the coach admitted, the three prince seemed to be a little underestimated. He will soon become the future of the kingdom of Orwin, but that day never knew the loss, teaching that day a little bit about losing here is also a good idea. But the three prince is very strong, even if it is a genius of the sword Dharma, it will not win easily, Limer does not object, it is not easy. He suggested betting again, what about us betting? Again, I like real bet, Limer bet a wine, coach and Orwin agree, what fish is? He raised his hand. Raon will defeat the prince in the 5 tricks. The battle has begun. Greer seemed to realize he underestimated Ram. Orwin's coach is also surprised. Raon lowered Greer with a horizontal shot. After that, he collected it again, probably the end. Limer at the side laughed, oh my god, less than 5 moves while the coach was surprised. Greer now realized the mistake, we have wrongly assessed, we still guess for some reason, so he was ranked last. Is because he is too strong. Orwin's coach has not been able to believe it, it is the short-lived army, the tactics and his swordplay is completely complete, while Limer is satisfied, so I say that Raon will win there. He announced, we will book in a luxurious place. The three Prince Greer has not yet given up, the person stopped, I have not lost yet. Although the coach is very courageous, crazy about the match, but he is still resolute, I still have not shown you to see my true skill, if I play from the beginning of the beginning. Martha stood outside the karma, what is the dog? Why is a prince unable to accept that he lost, so bothered? Just like someone I knew, this sentence of her made Burn a bit startled. Greer turned to look, she was, not to let him finish the sentence, Martha was crossed, hey the prince, I was trying to be kind to you very much. Get out of here, he lost. Idelia saw that so loudly, shut up, you were talking to your highness, Momo Martha did not give up, he was the royal family but I was the main family of this clan, was closed, but. Limer stopped before the scuffle happened, enough, hurt a little of Raon's feelings. Raon, I can choose what I want. Raon spoke, the teacher has already bet, the match has ended so there is no reason to continue. Greer bitterly admitted, we accept the loss. I have wrongly evaluated you, I underestimate you right before the game, I am very embarrassed for this. He wants to ask for another chance to confront, please fight with me again, if we leave like this, we will regret the whole life. After saying that, he bent, please, Raon Ziegert. Raon was somewhat unexpectedly that Day apologized and harmed the sword down there, and thought that Day was just a prince. I agree, okay, but only once. Greer is happy, of course. Looking at the badge in hand, Greer thought, we were subjective so we underestimate and lose. So this time I will fight my best, a huge stream of power emanating from him. The next coach wants to stop the three prince, the sword art is, but the three prince will decide, this is not the time to hide the strength. He will fight Ron with all his strength. The quintessence of the emperor shows the attitude of disdain, this guy is stupid, he doesn't even know that you still hide the power. It seems that Raon has no intention of giving the prince this time I can also win. The quintessence of the emperor teases Rom, he has a lot of aura than the person and he is even stronger than you, like his red and black teacher. Raon solicited him to bet, you wanna be? The quintessence has no reason what to refuse, of course. Wraths want to bet on the condition, win the three prince kingdom of Orwin, if you win 4 all indicators, if you lose your feelings of rage increases 10. Seeing that Raon was ready, Greer announced it started, so start. After saying, 2 people rushed to each other. Other students witnessed the match in astonishment. Greer did not hide his surprise, we were all out but he was not repelled at all. He observed the person in front of him, Raon Ziegert, he was a genius, a monster, there was it. Okay, Greer is determined to fight to the end, I will fight with him. Meanwhile, Raon also silently judged that the opponent was probably the Parisian sword was only passed down to the connection of the Orwin kingdom, looking at the convergence of that day in this sword, then he must have all his strength in the next owl. Okay. Greer said loudly, all my strength here. Receive this technique Raon Ziegert. Raon observed the airflow around Greer, so it was a Paras sword, the type of sword was only transmitted to the air of the kingdom of Orwin, probably he planned to put all his strength into the next attack. He tightened the sword, I remembered all the tactics that the three prince used. It is time to use your tactics, thousands of fire carefully, Cyclodor Cyan. Greer was startled by this technique. Although the ROM radiates large energy, Kim Hoa destroyed Tien. He has not given up, no, not yet. There is still this skill, after saying that swinging the sword towards the opponent. 2 collision tactics. After that, the 2 of them continued to rush together. The battle took place without strength. Greer gradually regained his confidence, I repelled his technique and then I was on his body. While Raon is quite stressful. Unexpectedly a strong collision took place. Make Greer's sword broken. Sort of my optical. This time the Day also tried to deviate from my attack, Raon passed through the Greer. He collapsed. Again, the winner is Raon Ziegert. Greer desperately looked at the sword in his hand, certainly he was better than him in terms of speed and strength. He used his foot to betray his sword. He told Ron, it is true that the world is really large. Greer put his hand to reconcile, thanks to this match, we learned a lot, admitting that we lost. Raon also agreed, I also learned a lot. Greer apologized for disdain for him, apologizing just now he underestimated him as if I did not have the eyes to look at, it's okay, can I ask your age? Raon answered this year 14. This answer could not help but sighed, we lost a younger swordplay than us in both the sword and personality. He took me to Ron, took it away, he was surprised to ask, what was it? That is evidence that the 3 Prince Orwin, Greer de Orwin, ready to receive any words from him later, said and put in his hand a golden badge, Raon exclaimed, later for me, then I would so valuable. Greer confessed, we lost, but he really woke up, we felt like we had just enlightened so much, we thought that we were fortunate to lose to someone like you. Surely one day we will meet again, hope that day, he will still be stronger than me, Greer said and turned to leave. I think the desire to catch you up about that strength is also very interesting. Greer told Limer, Coach Limer, we lost, you win the bet, Limer could not hide his joy in his voice, okay. Greer ordered his people, Duke Tartan, let's go home. We have something to do now. Raon has not yet been surprised at the actions of the prince, in the previous life, completing the task without paying anything is normal, now it is awarded like this, so I am surprised. Feeling strange, he thought and looked at the badge in his hand. This life is that I was surprised in the way I could not expect. So that was the lesson that he had learned through the last match, the head of the Glen tribe was talking to the 3 prince. Greer admitted that, yes, I thought myself was the best, but he helped me to see and learn many things. He was like a mature sword. We have fought a lot of battles in 6 kingdoms, but this is the first time we see a strong trainee like Raon. He is younger than the god, but God can learn a lot from him. He continues to present. That's why we are going to return after this meeting. We want to quickly practice and learn. Slowly we have learned from him. Glenn has no reason to refuse. Okay, but thank the letter to the king? Greer rejoiced. Okay, thank you. Your Highness, hearing the Duke suddenly calling, Greer answered, why is the Duke, what do you want to say? He talked about the last battle, the fact that he revealed the power to use the Perez sword in the battle with Ron. I thought it was a bit too much. Hiding the power is very important. Hearing that, Greer laughs bitterly. I know, I am a bit too real. Duke also wanted to talk about the card he gave. Giving him the card was also a bit too much, but Greer refused. Nowhere. He said that Raon Sieghart showed good intentions to me. He might be very angry because he was underestimated, but in the end he was still polite to me, so I just responded to that good idea. In addition, Rom to show us a secret sword. The Duke seems not satisfied with the answer. That's how, but Greer continued to say, and that card was an investment, making the Duke feel confusing. What do you mean? The 3 Prince said that he has the skill, personality and spirit at that age, certainly the future. He will become an excellent person even though it is not intuition. If you are close to such a person, it will not be beneficial for us. The Duke unexpectedly, you have counted very far. We grow up in the royal family. If we can't think like that, we should die. He thought about the name Rom Sieghart. I am very curious, but I don't know the next time we meet, how strong he will be. On this side, the Sieghart housekeeper is talking to the patriarch, probably very happy to see his nephew being recognized by another prince. The owner, the old man, does not want to admit. What are you talking about? The butler continued, for a long time, I saw you laughing so warm. It seems that Glenn himself is difficult to understand. Laugh, the butler continues, yes, he laughed when the prince mentioned the name of the young master Raon. He was persistent not to admit. Loan, you're old, you must be wrong. Returning to an important story, the butler consulted him about the Duke of Tartan, the homeowner. I feel a bit full of what the Duke Tartan said. What do you think? This makes Glenn fall into thought. Before that, Tartan came to report to him. I had something to tell him outside the prince's letter. I have words from the Emperor of the Kingdom of Orwyn and Lekros Alberton to Orwyn. I need to move to him. 5. Darkness began to act again. Limer stands in front of the students praising. They do very well in the practice with the trainee of the Kingdom of Orwyn. It seems that it is ready. Next week, the teacher will prepare for the children the training of special skills. This statement makes many people sweat. Special skills. One of them asked, what is this special training session? Limer answered, well, called special training is not very right. He warned, must be a really new battle. You should also prepare the spirit of sweating and boiling tears. The south of Sieghart, then in the mountains with ice robbery claiming to be Tiger. Their accomplices are in the south and the north, and they live by collecting fees and passing the roads here, but recently they seem to be more active. They kill and rob the merchants more often. The students immediately asked, our task was to destroy them. Limer did not accept it. It was true that it was like that. This answer made many people find it difficult to understand. What was it once, sir? The mission has changed. Why don't we ambush? Limer answered, we can't. They have subdued and cleaned a house in the south, then burned everything. The answer has made the students unable to fear. Limer stated that it was the reason why the task was changed to tracing them before destroying it, although they were just a band of robberies, but all those who used anonymous spirit, so they were not allowed to be subjective. At the end of the conversation, he announced, we will depart tomorrow night, get ready. This side, Runnan is practicing swords. The practice seems to make her a bit frustrated. I want to pray to the posture a little more before departure, but the story is not as satisfactory. She did not know where her blossoms were. Raon's swords were very flexible and smooth. I didn't know where my problem was lying. Looking at the training house, Runnan came up with an idea. Now that Raon is also practicing in it, should I ask him? When she was finished, she was frustrated again. Probably I didn't want to bother him. And determined to practice itself. At the end of the training session, I was weaker than before, but my movement was smoother. Today is okay. Runa tried to greet Rom before returning. Probably Raon was still practicing. Goodbye to him before going home. She suddenly remembered her mother told me, this weekend go home soon. I bought some ice cream. Thinking so, Runa quickly went home, stopped home, tomorrow, and then asked him, tomorrow I will take him some ice cream. Runnin, suddenly there was a call. Runnin turned around, who was that? She seemed to be calm because the person in front of her. That person suddenly said, long time no see. Runnin voice trembled, Syria. Syria just watched her laugh. He was close to Runnin, seeing his brother, and I didn't feel happy, I made me so sad. For some reason, Runnin suddenly became very scared. Didn't he tell you not to make that face? He knelt down, anyway, the Limer training is quite good, I became stronger than you expected. I am very proud of you, Runnin. Syria suddenly darkened, but I would not risk my life to participate in the war or a certain confrontation. This made Runnin fear fell back. He stood up and said, I forgot what you got up already, you must have reminded me. Syria suddenly said, the squirrel before I raised my name was Ruby. Runnin could not help but be terrified, bro. Syria said, I remembered, the way Ruby died because I did not listen to you. She screamed, bro. Runnin ran to the compartment, drilled. But it's too late. Runnin recalls terrible scenes. She hugged her head and screamed. Runnin is increasingly panic. Syria stepped closer, Runnin, so remember me. Until the decision date comes. Do not do anything dangerous, all you need to do is survive until I told you to do the opposite. Suddenly a hit towards them. Syria blocked it easily. While Runnin was not all panic. But now, Raon is standing in front of her, this. Who are you? The male lead asked, who he was. The boy with long white hair said, before asking the name of another person, he should introduce himself first. Those who want to do with me will not get a good outcome. Blocking other people in such a dark alley is nothing good, the male lead replies. The set is a pickpocket or robbery. The other guy expressed his helpless eyes. He said, he wanted to think that. But I am not a robbery, that is my brother's brother. The male lead took his eyes towards the white-haired girl who was trembling. The sound of fear came from the girl. He continued, Runnin looked scared that he was his brother really. The white-haired guy hurriedly replied, and then he met again, so I was going to joke a little. He crushed a squirrel in his hand and said it was a joke. The boy was confused, did you see, but it was not a real squirrel. Looking at this squirrel, he sparked his hand. Come on, you think I really killed a squirrel? The male lead thought, he burned his whole blood and body with aura. Anyway, in the near future I will not be able to come back here because I have to perform a long-term mission. I just stopped by to give her a little snack. He turned to say to the girl in a hidden way, Runnin, I really had a good friend. Please harmonize with him. Turning his back and walking, he continued, sorry for the joke just now, remember to keep his health again. I know that man. The genius swordsman of the Sleon family. And one of the two monsters in the next generation will become the god of the great Jia. Cererius Leon sword. Even before being reborn, I just heard his name. This was the first time he met him in real life. He is the crazy person who pretends to be that compassionate hero, the male lead thinks. It felt like there was a disgusting smell that had just shifted into his nose, like when facing Daruth. He reached out in front of the girl, Runnin. Come on, I will return to you. The girl replied, okay. Thank you for bringing me home, she said. Well, you will go home early tomorrow. The male lead looked at the shadow of the car that was hidden. She sat and hugged the box that was moody. A sad feeling covering the girl. The colorful cakes in the box appear. She thought, he was back. I didn't change at all. The memories suddenly evoke hands containing scratches. Ruby is only a bit sensitive because she takes care of her children. It's really okay. The silhouette of a fox lying on the ground. I belong to my brothers not to be injured. From now on, don't be injured anymore and just need to breathe and live. If you talk to my parents, we'll kill them, even if your family doesn't need him to destroy everything, except you, I will burn everyone into ashes. If I dare to open my mouth, another person's words will be in danger. It is better to only live a silent life. I will be safe as long as I keep silent. I thought I was lonely, who was only the only one who suffered. Her eyes suddenly lit up, but actually not just her. When he met Raon Sieghart, he knew how Raon knew how he was hard-working and the difficult time he had to endure. People who constantly change their prejudice about themselves thanks to their own efforts have made themselves believe that they can change. I tried to change. The girl dropped her head, but in the end, she still could not do it. It will be fine as long as I endure. In the morning, the southernmost of Sieghart-Sarden village. The red-haired boy said, "Then we will stay here tonight. The children have tried hard to get to this remote place, surely you are very tired, take a good break because tonight will be the last resting time before starting the task." The man in the village said, "The boys came and the swordsman of Sieghart invited this way I would show him the way to the accommodation." The red-haired guy, "Thank you for your welcome." The fire brightened in the room. The male lead, "Thank you resentment." Resentment of wonder, "Huh for something." He said, "If he didn't ask you to remind me, I wouldn't have discovered that he was hiding his energy." Resentment continues, "That guy is vulgar." Vulgar. "Of course, I have to help her cold ice cream." He said he had a long-term task so he could not come back for a while. But as long as he was Runan's brother, he would not be peaceful. Resentment said, "Giving your body to me, I will kill that vulgar bastard and return your body back." He was surprised to ask, "What?" "Before we reported twice as much as a revenge, that girl, she told me of the delicious cream like that, right? I will be for her." The bullshit is too unable to do so. Resentment asserted, "We said seriously." He responded, "Even if you were serious, it wouldn't be." He made Runan obsessed even if he killed him could not make everything differently. Huh. He thought, actually in his previous life in this life Runan. It was the first person to treat him well. If anything happened to him, I would kill him by myself. 2 days since leaving the Sieghart page, we went to the Tiger's nails. Suddenly a corpse appeared, the students shouted, "What the hell? So they can. This is really far away." The blue-haired student looked at the corpse, "Huh." The male lead thought, "So terrible. Their neck was cut off before being destroyed." But Martha did not seem terrified at the corpse. Waiting for Runan. The girl stands in front of her body. One smell of death and gloomy, Mr. Limer told his students the bad scene that they saw here was the consequence of the white tiger bandage to make. Everyone's face seemed sad. Mr. Limer reminded me to carefully insert this moment in your mind and never forget to raise your vigilance if you encounter them. Mr. Limer raised a short flute here, which is considered to be the flute. It will not make any noise no matter how strong the children blow it. The only people who can hear this whistle are the people who are trained to hear it, so if there is any uncertainty, do not hesitate to use it. Runan was full of anxiety looking at the flute in his hand. Mr. Limer continued to tell everyone the guards will immediately react and come to save the children as quickly as possible. Mr. Limer stood seriously in front of their swordsmanships very accidentally when clashing them. They could not imagine the consequences, but instead of blowing them immediately, they should do everything they can do. Before, you can try to fight them without our help. Mr. Limer ordered not to hesitate to kill them as soon as they have the opportunity because they are also guilty of death. When everyone shouts, Runan is still silent and does not say words. Mr. Limer continues to assign tasks. Now divide into groups under the orders of the captain. Martha will be in Group A and Buran will be in Group B. Everyone moves in groups of 3 to 4 people. Runan looked at the sword in his hand, thinking about his brother's words. "Runan, you're mine." Syria's words still splashed in Runan's ear that don't do anything dangerous can hurt you. I just need to continue to live until the day you need you. A threat that scared Runan. I will kill anything that dares to hurt you. Runan wakes up when he hears someone call his name. Raon walked to the side of Runan to take the initiative to tell you. Runan remained silent, she seemed hesitant in this mission. Then Runan agreed to go with Ram. The two of them went to a forest with white snow peak. Raon looked at the top of that mountain that was the peak of Sao Sao. At that peak place would probably help us observe the situation below, and it was also easier to run away from the enemy if we fell. In disadvantages, it will be a perfect place for them to hide. Raon continues to observe around, but it is because that place is so perfect for bandits they will not hide there because it is our viewing point. Raon speculated that they did not choose such a revealing position when they knew that many people were following their tails. They must have thought that we would guess they were hiding there, so they found a place. Another safe cooking. Snow still falls more and more thick, that is, hiding in the hill area is their only choice. Outside it seems that it may be observed because of empty, but perhaps there is a place to hide. Any other? Runan looked at Ram. He said we quickly go. Raon told Runan we should check the other hill in the forest, let the other teams take care. Runan was silent first. Raon helplessly looked at her. The quintessence of the Emperor said that you were quite obvious that you were not going to say anything to her. Raon said that I was not sure what to say to her anymore, in addition to that it was also belongs to her family. Raon thoughtfully thought, because I could not even understand my current emotions for Sylvia, no life I could give her a good advice on her family's goodness. Raon clenched his hand to look at Runan walking ahead, but I knew what Syria had done with Runan in the past. Maybe I could solve this problem if I had a chance to find that opportunity. It is difficult. In addition, it is all in his prediction. Raon and Runan moved to the inspection place. Raon had a forest hidden behind the hill that outsiders could not see it quite deep, and Raon observed that it seemed that human traces were hidden, so others would not be able to find them. Even so, those games could only be tricked. With us, with use. What is the thing under the snow that only kills the object? It is impossible to become the best assassin. The time of the exploration and collection of information must be the best in all the aspects, have the successor. Being a normal hunter or others, but for me it is useless. Raon turned around and told Runan I thought the Bok tiger's base was nearby. Raon vigilantly reminded Runan to follow me, trying to be silent even in the breath. Both go carefully. Raon Lan saw an animal trap. The two of them hiding behind the bush. Raon thought that they did not have anything special but the traps at the entrance. Perhaps they thought that no one would come here because there were many traces around here. Living. Raon looked at the cave of the hiding place of the White Tiger bandits. It seems that they have underestimated us. Raon saw a child tied there. The boy was the hostage of the Raon wonder. The bandits were laughing happily with each other. The bandits had a large body, but I did not feel any strong atmosphere from them. These floods were just a few low-class warriors. Raon observed that another person, the huge name near the hostage, he was strong enough to be able to earn a living with his swordplay. Raon is more cautious. He thinks the robbers must be gathered in it. No life they let the only hostage outside the simple hut like this. Perhaps there are dozens of bandits in me. Should blow the siren to everyone here. I can withdraw now and attack with the main force when they come there. Raon looked at the tied boy who was about to bear any more. The current situation of the hostage was extremely endangered. This moment the boy would be cold to death. He would not be able to survive until the total force, the amount of help is here. Raon tried to draw their swords, still not realizing their presence. The best way is to save hostages before they find us and handle as quickly as possible. Runan is worried about that hostage. Runan was startled. Raon said to look at me. Raon and Runan, do not worry too much, we can save the boy, but I need your help. Raon continued, once I signaled, please use the magic to prevent the sound of myself. I will do it, and you should pay attention to the long men. Can Ron gently do it? Runan's face is determined to try. A robot yawned and said that I was so sleepy. For how long? It would be all duty, how long it takes it. Runan walked out in front of the two guardians. A bandit called out. Runan calmly transferred the method of liberating the aura to prevent the sound flow. The two gatekeepers of the loud fear of us could not escape the outside that she had stopped the noise with that magic. Why did someone use the magic at the place where the monkey coughed like this? Raon rushed in like this is his chance before handling the name of the capital in the back. Handling these two names first, Raon pulled the sword. Runan is full of bewilderment. An animal was killed. The childhood memories appear again. Runan plunged his ears and fell to the ground. Raon bite damn teeth, barrier the magic to prevent the sound from being broken. Runan was still very scared. Raon guessed his psychological trauma relapse because of that situation. Just this momentum, the bandits discovered that we were lost. When a bandit raised the sword towards Runan, Raon immediately rushed. Runan still bowed his head to the ground. Raon defeated a bandit. Raon's legs step on the face of the wise robber. Do not shout loudly, I have not allowed to spare, you will die, you have to answer your questions. If you do not obey, I will draw your bones. The bandit wrinkled with his face. The whole Runan body trembled helplessly. Raon looked like Runan thought that the girl was scared. Raon's face proudly laughed at her, but he was able to act even though he was scared, but she did very well. Raon adjacent to the neck of the bandit starts to ask you of the white tiger, right? Yes, how many of you have the names they are living in? A total of 39 people. They are in the forest. How many children are left? News, 1 person. Raon thinks that there is another hostage. The hostage boy in the back of English Swordsmaster, and the hostage is my brother, please save me. Runan came to pat the shoulder to comfort the boy, rest assured that we will save it, don't worry. Raon turned around and said, Runan, I didn't say that. Runan responded anyway, he would do that. Raon didn't know how to run Runan. Raon explained that it is not that I am afraid of the bandits, but it is better to call the host to save the hostage, which will be safer, including 36 robbers and 1 usury loan, so it can be very dangerous. Runan raised the flute to ask, so let's blow the flute. Raon agreed with her, yes, I think it will be better. Runan began to blow the flute. Raon looked at Runan, blowing the flute near so, but I still could not hear the flute. It was probably the reason that Limer gave this flute. Suddenly the robber shouted there was anonymous flute, all of them rushing to hunt us. Both Raon and Runan did not expect it like that. Raon did not believe anything, but why did he have such a sensitive senses like that? He could not hear it right next to him. Raon used the sword to the neck of the bandit to threaten the remaining bandits. Runan took the boy. The big bandit said the bastard was not afraid or why came here, you were so reckless. It was a bandit with silver hair and scar on the face. He said the guys blew the flute to call someone here. Raon frankly replied to call anyone you don't need to know. The two sides exchanged people. Behind a little girl there, the bandit asked to exchange hostages. Raon replied, if you give that child to me, I will return this name to you. The robbery laughed, ha ha ha, whether the bastard died or not did not affect me, he did not deserve to let me release this kid. The child next to him burst into tears when the bandit said, if you don't want to see this small head falling, then put the sword down immediately. Raon frowned. Raon told Runan back to wait for my signal. Raon's face was not expressive but killed the bandit in his hand. A neck-cut of blood robber immediately shot everywhere. Other bandits do not believe in the eyes of the bastard. What are you doing? Raon swung the sword towards the bandits. The bandits in a moment were scared of fear. Each robber was killed. Raon said loudly, Runan to create a fog covered the view. Runan quickly followed Raon. A fog is everywhere. The robber is confused with fog, obscuring the view. Raon saved the hostage. The young boy ran out. The bandits angrily looked at each other miserable. He took the small child to run. The dog died, could not lose them if they met them. Raon let the two children lying on the jacket, then he told Runan, I thought the children were so cold, so it was hard to run. Runan said that they could not forgive those bandits if they kept ignoring them when they knew they still what more evil for the village, although they are crowded, but I have to destroy them here right now. Raon told Runan to stay here and watch out for the kids. Raon worriedly looked at Raon's hand bleeding. Raon glimpses it is okay, handling the bandits, I will come back immediately. Runan pulled the robe sleeves gently. Runan's eyes were so tearful that she said, Raon, not to go, he was injured and fighting was so dangerous. Runan advised to prevent Raon from coming soon, wait for everyone to come and help him with one hand. Raon looked at Runan, calling her name Runan. Runan bowed his face sadly. Raon sat down and looked at her face, which is really scary, for experienced swordsmen or students like us feel that. But you know what is the most scary? Runan raised his face to look when he heard Ram said it was not doing anything. Raon continued, the bandits who had extremely cruel actions that were hard to forgive, there were people who protected the village that sacrificed and also had people fighting to protect their loved ones, we did not can close his eyes to ignore their sacrifice. We are swordsmen. Raon's eyes are full of power, so we must carry out the mission until the last moment, we must follow the footsteps of those who go before to protect those who stay back. Raon stood up and said I didn't know how her brother treated her, but the more he feared the person's silhouette would appear more and the fear would become more deeply ingrained in the mind if she kept running a vaping fear. Throughout this life, she will be tormented by it. Runan looked at Raon, he said Runan, only she could protect himself and his loved ones next to him. Raon put his hand in his pocket. Raon took out one thing and gave it to Runan to say what she had to do from this time, all because her hand decided to Runan. Then Raon walked without hiding in the dark. Runan's eyes were ruined. Runan thought of my brother, I want to change. I want to forget, I don't want to be bound by the past. Photos of happy days coming back, Ron thinks he wants to protect his most valuable thing. The tears rolled down on the face of Runa. I will not hide in the darkness anymore and towards the bright future ahead. Runan holds the wooden squirrel that Ron gave, I have to continue moving forward. Raon continuously attacked, killed bandits. The bandits everyone feared to kill it quickly. Each bandit fell down, the rest shouted damn it, stopped it quickly, just a kid. The silver-haired bandit loudly, why can't you stop it? Ram's eyes filled with angry. A bandit from behind raised the sword towards Ron. Raon quickly realized. The robbery also quickly attacked Raon, you dead, and then the mouse was miserable. A shot to swing the earth. What is the amazing robbery? Where did the old man take the sword there? Raon appears behind the old man who tries to wait for the opportunity like a cowardly guy. Raon used a sword to slash his head. The remaining bandits were frightened when Raon went towards themselves, the monster who was only over those age, but why was it so strong? It was really just an apprentice soldier, huh? Raon approached the bandits to surrender, your leader. A unexpected attack on Ram. Another robber came out really ridiculous, you gave up before that boy. It was a bandit with a long scar through the eyes, He said that if this is like this, when joining the Northern Union, we will shame ourselves. The bandit looked at Ram and you looked rich, you probably came from a pretty family, the better. The bandit quickly attacked Ra and I worry that when he caught you, there would be no much ransom that God did not abandon me and then Vukan. A strong shot made Ron back, the loud bandit I will make you hostage. Raon tried to use the sword to support this name as the leader of the White Tiger Bandits, he was definitely a swordsman who was not an official swordsman. The bandits outside La found them and the other was Bastard and the hostage was here. Outside Runnan is supporting a bandit's attack. Raon looked out and worried that Runnan was not ready to fight her to help her. When Raon was distracting, the strong attacking leader, why did you dare to look away while I was standing in front of you, you were worried about your accomplices. The leader excited you and I can have a little more fun. Raon is difficult to support damn attacks. The bandit outside said loudly to damn this bastard, it uses some strange skills, it seems that you have never killed anyone before. He shouted at Runnan's face to give the hostage here not to have a circle. Runnan whispered to himself to protect those children at all costs. Runnan holds the sword in his hand but to do that, he must kill the enemy in front of him, fortunately he is not a heavy opponent. When the bandit rushed to Runnan, he determined to kill him, kill him. Suddenly the image of his brother appeared, don't forget what Ron said. Runnan looked at that image bewildered. Suddenly Runnan's will collapsed. Runnan was surprised, I saw him and then I had to chase him away, but I could not forget that fear that day, I could protect something like Raon did but. The bewilderment is filled with Runnan's thoughts that I can't even swing the sword in this situation, I'm afraid, I have never protected anything. A call to wake Runnan. She turned to see Raon playing with the leader. Raon's face smiled and said okay, you can do it. Raon like the light entering her dark past, he reached out to pick up the Runnan girl who was scared not to worry. Runnan in the past took Raon's hand when he said it again to me. Runnan has calmed down. Runnan pulled out to thank him for his courage. Runnan rushed to the illusion of his brother. Then directly rushed towards the bandit, for helping me forward. The bandit was immediately hit. Runnan's eyes are full of resilience, for trusting himself. The leader looked outside the other guys who lost to these kids, flood useless. The leader glanced at Ram, he said she was not just a kid. She is a child who can overcome her own past and she has a kind heart more than anyone else. Raon watched the bandit continue her as a swordsman who had overcome challenges. Raon's most technical thousands of fire. A technique defeated the leader. Runnan went to the two children, Raon checked around him to check if there was any trap before the masters came. Raon finds a small flower, a binary flower, this is a rare herb but actually slaughtered the whole village just because of this. Suddenly, there is something behind me, it's over. The strange man said it was a dual flower that Vukan had. It was the North Alliance of the leader of the Eternal Bandits, he seemed to be interested in the two of them to kill them already. What is the difficult to see if he killed him? The leader of the permanent robbery laughed and laughed, not only that, he was also good at judging the situation, you were so confident that it was probably because it was good. The leader is quite surprising when Raon said you belong to the North-South Alliance. The robber answered that my name was Rikian, Raon so hard so he was Ricular. Raon thought that he had heard the name once, a genius swordsman joined the North-South Alliance with just one sword and became the leader of a big band of robbery for 10 years, the White Tiger Bandage what is compared to him. He is a swordsman with a true power. The leader looked at Runnan and Raon said a child from a famous family of the Sieghart family, right, your sword skill is not impressive, so you are still an apprentice soldier, I should do what now? Should his face full of killing intent should kill you? Raon and Rikian stood opposite each other. Raon looked seriously his intention to kill him very clearly. Raon did not hesitate to rush but for the previous life who used to be an assassin like me, this is nothing. Ricular smiled loudly, he was not afraid, it was not a mediocre child. Raon pulled the sword continued. Raon speculated that he could definitely kill him if he approached him from behind, and if he had to fight directly, his chance to win was impossible. Raon quickly pulled out the sword, but for any reason I didn't want to back down. Raon challenged Rikianer to withdraw your sword. Ralar is calm if that's the case, you will die. Raon said the weak defeated to the strong sense. Rikian still keeps the expression as before hearing these words from a kid is really strange. Then Rikianer raised his hand and laughed like this made me not want to fight more, so embarrassing to kill you here. Raon said a warrior without choosing a place to die, Ricular seemed more excited, so crazy, is it true that you are a child? Ricular looked back and said there was another reason that I didn't want to kill you. Raon is difficult to understand that Rikian said, violently observing us for a while. Then Rikianer ran away and said if you were also part of the North-South Alliance, it would be very interesting. Rikiana went to the rock above to ask what is your name. Raon answered my name is Raon. Raon looked up and added Raon Zieghart. Rikian smiled Raon Zieghart. Then Rikahan left. We hope that one day we'll hear the names of the other side of the mountains of Tarakan and the Rabla River. Raon watched him go. Raon went back to Runnan. We had to go, and to be said by Runnan. Suddenly Runnan called Raon. Raon turned around. Runnan wondered if I did well. Raon was surprised when Runnan asked. Then he smiled. Runnan was happy when Raon said he was the best. Raon and Runnan and the two children left, so our short but very long mission had ended. Raon thinking. Raon carried the head of the leader of the Tiger. Byrne and Martha were very sad because he lost to me again. Mr. Limer happily sat and talked to students to comfort because they did not show well and still gave them advice, and did not understand how to become a story about his wonderful first mission. Even the essence of Emperor did not miss the opportunity to show off himself. He talked about that long-eared father, but I still froze a castle in that first battle. Heard too the person who chattered made Ron wanna bleed his ears. The rescued children lost their parents, so the Sleon family decided to accept them to raise. The children seemed to like it because they were very valuable to Runnan. After returning to that mission, Runnan and Raon were summoned by the Lord. The two of them were awarded the bronze medal for their trophies. Raon was surprised to receive the praise of the Lord, and moreover he also gave the binary flowers to Ram. Raon feels that such a rare and precious panacea is a very good thing. What is Raon? Raon opened the door to see Doria. Why were you here, Doria? Cheerfully the owner finally went home. Doria touched and smiled and told the owner to tell him to stop and tell her what happened after completing the mission. Raon was shocked, so he told my mother all. Doria was touched and obeyed her to hear about his touching story. Raon could not believe what this idiot did. Sylvia hurriedly ran out of that. Is that child? The servant behind, said the owner. Raon thought that Sylvia would be angry if he knew he dared to confront the bandits alone, and then he raised his hands to express his innocence that he did not intend it. Sylvia rushed to hug Raon. She touched Ron's face full of pride. Very good, Ram. Raon is difficult to understand. Sylvia smiled and said, why do you think you'll be angry with me? You always say that you have to be careful. The reason the head of our clan holding the sword is easy to protect the weak. Mom heard that he always reached out to help those who had difficulties, and descendants like us later continued to follow his example. Sylvia continued to say that she had dreamed of becoming such a swordsman. How could she scold her for herself to save hostages? Sylvia put her hand on Ram's shoulder, and mother very proud about her child. The two servants said that when we learned that, we were also proud of the owner. Tomorrow I had to go to the main mansion, so I would show off to the people there about this. Sylvia hugged my son. Mother's growing up will surely become a good man. Raon also hugged her mother. I could not understand her emotion, was really complicated. Raon glanced at the side anyway. The quintessence of the Emperor showed it up now. The mother and daughter Sylvia and Raon stood and hugged each other happy. Ron thought so tonight was not so bad. Runnan put the wooden squirrel lipstick that Raon gave on the table. She smiled and touched it. Runnan recalled what Ram told himself when he was on duty. He didn't need to hide in that shadow forever. Runnan lay in bed. When I met me, I definitely had to tell him. I would definitely say thank you no matter what happened. Mr. Limer is lying on the outdoor hammock in the evening. Mr. Limer recalled that the day he was on duty, he saw Raon challenge with Rikianer, draw your sword and fight away. Suddenly Mr. Limer smiled slightly. Mr. Limer happily spoke for a long time. I saw a person with the quality of the Lord. It seems that this will be a bright candidate for the next throne. Everything has just started to start. At the main villa of the Robert family. Rikian is sitting on the desk. Rikiler wrote something attentively. Rikaha's eyes furrowed. The wound and the bleeding name was written. Rikiler raised his hand to see the wound has not closed. Rikiler recalled the attack. For 17 years. I have also tried many different high-quality miracles. I also invited talented and priesthood scholars to come so much, so I did not heal the wound. Rikian still looked at the mouth of the wound opened in the hand, and unable to heal nor became worse, as if he had just been injured yesterday. He probably wanted to remind him not to forget the day. There. Roller pensive has some dead soul want to come out and not forget him. Rikiler is so angry that we are not the one who likes to look at the past. Rikiler placed his hand on the paper and said it was only a short time before our whole life will come true. Raon stood looking at the notice board that wrote the unfortunate curse that had become weaker, and achieved 3 stars, the unfortunate spirit has achieved 3 stars. The mastery of the senses has achieved 3 stars with fire resistance to 3 stars. You have accomplished the goal of becoming a technique expert. The spiritual control tribe has increased all the rising indicators rapidly, the level of proficiency in the swordsmanship that has increased by the rules. Raon touched the notice board that finally reached the realm of experts. Raon happily thought that even though she was the first level, it was very hard for me to achieve. That elite appears to be ridiculous, even if it is a master of swordsmanship, he is just a small insect, but the new progress has been proud. Raon on the back of the hand to tell the quintessence of the Emperor, not all 15-year-old teenagers can achieve the same level as us, even if the person who is looking for this continent cannot find anyone in this age as us. Chief. The quintessence to continue saying that only the idiots will go to the age of the battlefield, the age has nothing to do with anything weak. Raon Mai is obliged to give you just because of the youngest person, I totally agree. The quintessence to say the idiot continues like now, even a finger of me you cannot touch and not even the nail is not even, Raon happily admits to rub it right. The quintessence of the Emperor asks so why you still laugh. Raon happily replied because we felt our previous life before we could not reach this speed. Raon continued to admit that we were more mature. The quintessence of anger shouted at you thought I would praise the person you. Raon turned to ask so why are you angry now? Raon walked and said that I heard the cosmic voice so I probably didn't guess it was wrong with you long enough to know what you were thinking. That quintessence annoyed that a person dared to see me, it was worth dying. The quintessence to freely shout, Raon went ahead and said that your wrath could not do anything if you did not regain your strength soon, I would be eaten by me. The quintessence to close to Ron said the person who said words was not anywhere, she missed the old days. The quintessence to continue remembering the day in hell, the demons came to challenge me, Ron quickly walked forward I went to stretch here, the quintessence to annoy you to go, people said it. Mr. Limer applauded everyone quickly. Mr. Limer said that he will come here today. Burin went to ask today, the teacher was 20 minutes late, we had to make up for that flower. Mr. Limer runs fast, we can compensate tomorrow, but today is enough, Burin thought the name of this irresponsible spiritual spirit. Raon do not say that, then the end today who must be on duty, then stay. Dory stood outside the door. Martha crossed his arms and stood looking at Dory with an annoying face. Doria was about to run away when Martha grabbed, she shouted loudly to me so scary. Doria tried to calm down and said it was my pleasure, Martha was angry at every practice that made me busy enough. Martha fans growing up the people there to look at something, I have to clean it quickly. Others quickly ran out. Raon looked at Martha thinking that she could only calm down when she was with her, Mr. Limer standing next to Raon said she still did not change anything, he guessed it was just calm when being with me. Raon was surprised to hear his teacher's voice turn to say Mr. Limer. Raon asked the teacher I thought he was running away, Mr. Limer. He said we forgot something, so they came back, the other students seemed to have any questions, what did he forget? Mr. Limer focuses all students saying that people pay attention to us still need to notify really very important. Mr. Limer shyly say what time is this time? Everyone was shocked to hear the teacher saying about everyone's second mission. Mr. Limer laughed and apologized. Raon stood still thinking for nearly half a year from the first mission and then time until the second task was longer than usual, there was less duty for the Sieghart family to handle than the previous life. Mr. Rimmer said Orc suddenly appeared and invaded the southern region of Sieghart, the task of these children is to destroy the Orc that are threatening the villagers. And protect people in the same house, in other words the tasks of the children are to protect the village and hunt monsters. The very excited practitioners are to hunt for that Orc. Everyone talks together here, I want to do it before, I can finally try my technique. Suddenly, Mr. Limer suddenly said everyone was excited about the new task, the new people. Mr. Limer seriously added this task will not follow the same teachers who will come to the village and be forced to combine to complete the task. Burin raised his hand so if we crashed into the dangerous situation that it was impossible to escape, Mr. Limer replied depending on the kids if the task could not be completed, then know when to give up. Mr. Limer smiled and revealed so the leader must be able to accurately assess the situation that the important thing is that the leader must judge what is the bad and the best situation for that incident. Doria goes forward to ask not to run away from the mission that is not very good evaluation or what, Mr. Limer said it is often like that, but it depends on the type of situation if I am alone in the middle of the 5 monsters and still have the escape must be praised. Doria excitedly turned to think so wonderful, so I did not run in trouble. Everyone was surprised when Mr. Limer announced that they would leave early in the morning. Everyone stood when listening to Limer informed, and everyone had to leave here in dawn, only 2 days. A person does not keep calm. Why is there a little time? That's too much, another agrees. Now it is already dark, we only have one more day. Limer casually answered, there are many things that need to prepare for the conquest of monsters compared to defending or exploring the dungeon. He smiled confidently, the games will destroy the village if they are not fully prepared, so remember carefully. Makes Burton annoyed, we will prepare better than the teacher. Raon spoke, now, that's enough. Professor Limer has always told us that we will not know when and what the mission will be. Now it's not a panic, we should prepare, the more you complain, the less time for us. Other students admit that he is right, nothing guarantees we are ready when the mission starts. Although it is somewhat reluctant, people have to follow, move. Limer continues to advise, in addition to aggressive and stronger than thoughts. Compared to the previous matches of the games, they are much more difficult based on their quantity, they have a lot, so the games have no advantages in military numbers. It will be very difficult to confront one with them, it is best to avoid their attacks instead of supporting, carrying luggage as at least possible and focusing here in the dawn 2 days later. That is all. Raon noticed in front of the room there was a small bag. A luggage with a lightweight do-it, it is clear that he does not intend to help us to store things. He carried his bag into the room, I thought that he was trying to say that we had to do it all, rub it was okay for me. The quintessence of the Emperor suddenly appeared, arrogant. He deliberately teased Raon, you think everything will be like you are expected, something surprising can happen at any time. Raon does not bother to refute, rub, so it is right. He continued to say, as the way he gave me all the index points, now the quintessence is angry, I want to sew your mouth too much, you can do that life. Suddenly there was a knock on the door that made the two people stop. Raon wondered, who visited me now? Before ending the identity question. He stood in the picture. And extremely surprised by the woman behind the door, mother. Sylvia is seriously questioning, Raon should let you know if you have a duty. Raon stammered, how did the mother know? Dorian told me. Limer told me. This answer made Ron uncomfortable with Limer, this goblin. He had to apologize to Sylvia, I'm sorry. #value. Sylvia sighed, Ron. She grabbed Raon's hand, becoming the class president not only the representative of other students, I am also responsible for guiding other students to go better. She smiled, you should not solve the task alone, should assign the right task for your teammates to minimize losses and lead people to success, your life depends on the decision. That child. Raon was a bit surprised by these words of Sylvia, I thought my mother would come to scold me, but it turned out to give me advice. Sylvia continued to say, the task of conquering monsters seemed easy, but it was actually very difficult. She put her hand on Rom's chest, ensuring to destroy all each child to ensure the villagers. You should realize that when on duty, you are no longer a student but a Sieghart swordsman. I want you to be able to prove you as a swordsman, who can inherit the will of the Sieghart family. Raon said his thoughts, I thought you came here to scream. Sylvia burned anger, she admitted, I was angry, I was both worried and uncomfortable. She hugged Raon, however, this is not the time to scold her. You should prepare to scold when I return, I'm glad you shine more than the start. But I have never stopped worrying about you. The next day, Limer stood in front of all the students for the last time before the mission. The people below listen attentively, everything can happen, remember carefully. Limer also advised that, stepping back the thoughts were too much, below in the same time, yes, teacher. Done, he sat down on the floor, so it would take a month but because we had paved the way, it would only take about 2 weeks. Good luck, yes, Professor Limer. Raon ordered, now divided into 4 rows, we will move in the team that discussed first. Limer sat observing, I'm sure they will be fine. He thinks not only talent in battle and spiritual energy, but also excellent in the ability to make tactics while he is continuing to command, people remember his position in case of fighting. Limer said that she will complete this task easily and return, towards Raon, he is dividing the mission for Dorian and Crane, checking all the items and the condition of the members. Limer watched the shadow of the students left, she was only 15 years old, I was looking forward to how she would show. The teaching assistant next to Limer could not help but worry, whether we should go to watch, with this distance, they will not pay attention to where to leave. Limer reassured it, there is no need for one of them to be very sharp. And he decided to leave the scene to go home to sleep, I went to sleep a little before going. The teaching assistant still could not help but worry, so it would be okay, we should go yet. Limer laughed, you should take care of the floods. The person wearing a black cloak is asking for his subordinates, people are sure about that information. The person who was kneeling in front of him confirmed, yes, we confirmed that in that village. Hearing that, he immediately ordered the people below, okay, so go, you can kill anyone who stops the way. His eyes showed evil rays, starting.